Imagine being laughed at by your classmates, mocked for having the weakest ability, told you'd never amount to anything. That was Su Jingming's life. His so-called power was nothing more than a pathetic spark of electricity, barely enough to light a bulb. Everyone said he was destined to fail, but what they didn't know was that hidden inside him was a secret that would shake the entire nation. The moment the martial exam began, the sky itself split open with violet lightning. An S-rank ability that hadn't appeared in years was finally unleashed. One strike from his spear tore through monsters like paper. His weak spark transformed into the legendary Violet Sky Divine Thunder, a power so overwhelming, even rank 2 Beast Kings fell before him. In just hours, he climbed from being an E-rank nobody to the #1 contender, crushing records, shocking rivals, and leaving the entire Federation stunned. This isn't just the story of a comeback, it's the rise of a prodigy who went from trash to the strongest in the world, and this is only the beginning.
His sister stood out at school, celebrated for her stunning looks and praised by all as exceptionally gifted. Unlike others, he was known by everyone as the ultimate freeloader. This happened solely because the power he gained was nothing more than a feeble, low-level spark of electricity. His classmates ridiculed him, predicting that he would one day be stuck at home, tending pigs and relying on his family's support. To them, he truly carried the rare and fabled gift of the twin ability physique. In addition, he had gained an extraordinary ability known as the Violet Sky Divine Thunder. A separate realm unfolded alongside. Human society progressed along a similar path. Yet in this world, enormous and fearsome creatures wandered across the landscape. In order to resist their adversaries, humanity began to develop extraordinary abilities. As each person reached maturity, they discovered a power unique to themselves. Individuals discovered that these abilities were organized into 9 distinct levels, with the majority awakening to powers that fell within the F to D range. His ability, though ranked at the lowest tier, barely a spark above nothing, classified as level 1 weak electricity. Despite straining himself to his absolute limits, he found that the power he produced was still less effective than that of an inexpensive stun baton. His classmates constantly mocked and looked down on him because of that. The girl who had cared for him since childhood encouraged him to shift his focus to liberal arts for the college entrance exam, hoping he might find a peaceful and normal life that way. Within the vast N nation, advanced studies were split into 2 distinct paths, one focusing on the arts and literature, the other centered on combat and physical skills. All students in the martial track had to enter assigned areas during the national exam, where they would have to battle deadly monsters. Because of this, those whose abilities were ranked below D were encouraged to pursue liberal arts instead, which essentially meant they would give up using their powers by choice. In contrast, individuals who found success along the martial path gained entry into ability institutes. Through years spent honing their skills under the guidance of mentors, they earned the opportunity to surpass the no-rank stage and achieve the status of genuine ranked awakeners. Many formidable figures had emerged from this very process. Hoped he would pick liberal arts, worried that the dangers of the martial exam could claim his life. However, the promise of a stable career offered little comfort, as he would remain defenseless if confronted by a beast. His parents had lost their lives when a wave of beasts swept through and attacked their city. Ultimately, he ended up signing his name on the martial track team registration form. From that moment forward, he spent nearly every waking hour inside the training hall, dedicating himself completely to perfecting his skills. Since the day he first opened his eyes to this new world, he had selected the spear to be his weapon of choice. Despite dedicating 2.5 years to training, he was unable to advance beyond the beginner level with no signs of improvement. At that moment he let out a sigh, weighed down by thoughts of what his future might hold. A bright blue digital window abruptly appeared before his eyes. He jolted awake, startled by the sudden appearance of the long-awaited system. After unwrapping the novice gift pack, he discovered that he had gained an S-rank ability along with 200 ability points. He felt overwhelming joy, realizing that in all of Great, an awakening of S-rank status emerged only once every 2.5 years. Whenever an individual like that emerged, the most prestigious academies would compete fiercely to recruit him, offering abundant resources and support to help him become the leading talent of his era. With a simple gesture, he caused the ability gift pack to open before him. A chime sounded as the system informed him that he had earned an S-rank ability called Violet Sky Divine Thunder. Above the city, the sky grew ominously dark as flashes of violet lightning split the night apart. The city's 3rd Legion promptly initiated the most advanced defense measures upon receiving the alert. The frightening storm caused many people to worry that a mighty lightning creature was on the verge of attacking. He gazed at his palm with excitement, confident that the S-rank ability, Violet Sky Divine Thunder, would allow him to excel in the upcoming martial exam and stand out among the competitors. He lifted his hand once more, activating the ability point pack. The system clarified that ability points were awarded for defeating beasts and could be used to enhance both levels and skills. Excitement surged through his thoughts as he considered the challenge ahead. Battling monsters to gain strength seemed straightforward and fierce, exactly the kind of approach he preferred. The system panel revealed that he possessed two fundamental abilities, the basic spear technique and the basic lightning gale slash. Abilities at their core emerged when the strength of the human body combined with the power of the spirit. Once he distributed points to each of the attributes, a comforting wave coursed through his veins, revitalizing his blood and focusing his mind until his thoughts became crisp and lucid. As he glanced over his panel, it became clear to him that his current strength was more than enough to qualify for the country's most prestigious ability academy. All his thoughts revolved around the question of whether he would emerge as the highest scorer in province. Recalling the prodigies who had received expert guidance from a young age, he found himself doubting his own abilities. Motivated by this idea, he chose to evaluate how far he had come by heading over to the martial hall. He lifted his spear by flicking it upward from the ground with his foot. With practiced skill, he twirled the weapon between his fingers, creating a brilliant display as the spear swept through the air. At that moment, the door flew open with a sharp, echoing crash. A team of firefighters entered the scene, their movements hurried and filled with a sense of urgency. The individuals stated that someone had contacted them about a fire occurring at this location. He hurriedly gestured with his hands, trying to clarify that the sudden burst of energy was only a result of his ongoing ability practice. The firefighters looked at one another and breathed out in relief, surprised that all the chaos had been caused by nothing more than a student's rehearsal. As they looked over the destroyed training room, they couldn't help but think that causing such chaos during practice meant this kid was truly remarkable. The neighbors living below approached with worried expressions, asking if the fire had been handled safely. Jingming offered a reassuring smile, explaining that Uncle Yang had already resolved the issue. Hearing this, the neighbors let out a sigh of relief and expressed how glad they were. Noticing Jingming's attire, they commented that he must be on his way to Martial Hall for training, and remarked with admiration that he was still practicing even the day before the big exam. In this world, those seeking to rise from an awakener to a genuine ability user needed to strengthen both their bodies and minds to grow stronger. For this reason, martial halls with trainers and practice areas began to appear. However, many families lacked the resources to pay for a private training space. The martial arts community and recognized, and as the most renowned martial hall chains in the region. Hall required its students to pay a yearly fee of $100,000, attracting those from affluent backgrounds, whereas Thunder Hall stood out as the sole option available to high school students without any cost. As soon as entered the hall, his eyes were drawn to someone he recognized right away. His cousin Tang stood before him. He approached her and offered a friendly greeting, wondering aloud about her reasons for visiting Thunder Hall. Tang clarified that her reason for being present was simply to support a friend. Gave a silent nod, choosing not to ask any more questions. He understood the situation and decided to leave, mentioning that he was on his way to the training room and allowed the other person to return to their task. As Tang Kai exited, a faint frown appeared on her face as she sensed something unusual about the man. Yao, standing nearby, leaned in and quietly asked Tang Kai who the stranger was, noting that he looked quite attractive. Tang explained that the person was her cousin, who was also a senior preparing to take the martial exam the following day. At that moment, a boy strolled over and started to joke with, suggesting that her curiosity might mean she had a crush. Openly confessed that with a face like his, as long as he wasn't weak, having him as a boyfriend would be quite something. Tang, on the other hand, quickly dismissed the excitement by cautioning everyone that there was little to be impressed about, since the person in question had only managed to awaken an E-rank ability. The boy let out a laugh, amused by someone with just an E-rank ability still choosing to enter the martial exam. He had to admit that kind of courage was impressive. Meanwhile, Tang released a weary sigh, feeling that courage didn't always equal good judgment. To him, the dangers involved were simply too high, and he would have preferred if the attempt wasn't made at all. Noticing that the atmosphere was becoming tense, he gently pulled on Tang Chi's arm, trying to lighten the situation. She reminded everyone that their purpose for visiting Thunder Hall was simply to explore, hoping to steer the group back to their original plan. Tang agreed with a nod, acknowledging that she had attended Bear Hall for all 3 years of high school and was only now visiting Thunder for the first time. She thought that taking some time to unwind before exams would benefit both her mind and body, and decided they should head out. At the same time, stepped into the examination chamber. Gripping his spear, he noticed how much less weight it seemed to have. He wondered if the change was due to his own body becoming more powerful. Despite the exam being scheduled for the next day, there was no longer time to search for a superior weapon determined. He chose to measure his maximum strength without relying on any enhancements. He let out a slow, measured breath, With both hands gripping the spear tightly, he drove it ahead with force. A loud bang echoed as the bullet tore straight through the metal target. The training room's walls were constructed from basic memory metal, allowing them to mend themselves whenever any damage remained within their capacity to recover. The display lit up with a bright flash showing the numbers 321 car. Slips curled into a subtle smile. His physical power had now increased to twice what it once was. For comparison, even the most powerful regular awakener rarely achieved a score as high as 100. Will Saint stuff. Afterward, he chose to experiment with the strength of the divine thunder that came from the violet sky. Electric currents erupted from his body, crackling with intense energy. The panels showed a car with the number 3021. He stood in disbelief, recognizing the overwhelming strength typical of an S-rank ability. Normally, someone with a first-rank power could only achieve a force equivalent to 1,000 car. Yet somehow, despite not even entering the first rank, he was already demonstrating abilities comparable to those of a mid-level first-rank user. Yet that still did not mark the extent of his abilities. His ultimate attack combined overwhelming physical power, enhanced abilities, and advanced combat skills into a single devastating strike. He tightened his hold on the spear, focusing his energy as celestial thunder surged through him. He directed a powerful lightning gale slash toward the testing apparatus, releasing its energy in a swift, electrifying arc. As soon as the spear tip made contact, it vibrated fiercely and let out a thunderous roar. In the next instant, called out for the group to break formation. A powerful explosion burst forth from the tip of the spear, radiating outwards and engulfing everything around it. Meanwhile, those gathered in the main hall noticed the whole structure shaking beneath their feet, with a few of them suspecting that an earthquake might be occurring. Almost everyone sharing the floor with struggled to stay upright. The air crackled with powerful energy waves, unmistakable evidence of someone wielding an ability, and an onlooker couldn't help but marvel at the scene. His brow furrowed with concern as she remembered that this floor was supposed to be set aside for high school students. Typically, anyone who awakened their abilities early would practice at Bear Hall instead. The boy standing next to her speculated quietly, thinking that perhaps a particularly strong person had come to train, or maybe a new high schooler with special abilities had recently appeared. While the two of them guessed at the situation, Tang subtly interrupted their conversation, suggesting that they should find out the truth on their own. Energy surges were definitely originating from a close location. Before they managed to walk far, the group encountered appeared a bit uneasy and inquired if was leaving for home so soon. In response, confirmed with a nod, explaining that he planned to head back early to get some extra work done. Upon hearing those words, Tang offered some reassurance, wishing him success on the upcoming exam while reminding him to be careful. As their conversation continued, the boy suddenly cut in with a sharp tone, dismissing any further pleasantries and insisting that the energy spike had indeed originated from their current location. The group came to a halt in front of a doorway, believing this was the place they had been searching for. As they entered the room, their eyes grew wide with disbelief at the chaotic scene that greeted them, leaving them silently wondering what could have possibly occurred in that place. Stared in shock at the scene before him, his finger trembling as he pointed toward the damage. He found it hard to believe. Even memory metal had been punctured. The sheer power needed for such a feat amazed him. He wondered if someone in City High could really possess that much strength. The boy standing next to her examined the scratches along the wall, and with a calm tone, explained that it couldn't have been a high school student. He mentioned that lingering hints of aggressive power remained, suggesting that someone with a rank 2 ability had probably lost their way to this floor and tried out their strength there. Upon hearing those words, the group let out a collective sigh of relief, their tense expressions softening as understanding passed between them. They silently agreed. It was unthinkable for any student to accomplish such a feat. Even the most talented individuals in the entire capital wouldn't be capable of this, let alone someone from City. The idea seemed completely out of the question. His thoughts spun with daring speculation. Moments earlier had been the only one to pass by this spot, wondered if could be the mysterious individual. Perhaps he had been concealing extraordinary abilities all along, biding his time to astonish everyone during the exam the next day. Her comments sparked a wave of sarcastic replies. Some dismissed her, claiming she had spent too much time reading web novels and was imagining unlikely scenarios where someone acted powerless only to surprise everyone later. Others insisted such a feat was unrealistic, arguing that even faking strength needed a certain minimum ability. They pointed out that he was only an E-rank awakener, and if he managed to score 300 on the test, that would already be extraordinary for someone at his level. The boy with short hair explained that both corridors provided exits to the outdoors. He reasoned that whoever had caused the strange disturbance likely escaped through the opposite hallway. Then he turned to Tang, silently asking for his opinion. Tang responded with uncertainty, her tone soft and unsure. Deep inside, she recognized that the marks on Mars closely resembled wounds from spear thrusts, which made her question whether it was truly being arrogant by entering the martial exam. The day of the exam exam arrived in the blink of an eye. Buses filled with candidates continuously pulled up outside the venue. A group of students carrying weapons across their backs exchanged greetings as they gathered near the entrance. Shortly after disembarked from a bus, firmly gripping his spear. Several intrigued students approached the fence and gazed in with wide eyes. They realized this was the location for their exam. One of them noticed a horned rhinoceros and was shocked by its presence. In previous years, the exams had only included creatures like shadow cats and iron spiders, making this year's challenge seem especially extreme. As the group whispered among themselves, an individual approached with a mocking expression and scoffed at them, questioning what was so special about a horned rhino. The newcomer implied that if they struggled with such a creature, they would remain worthless at an ability university, even if they barely managed to get admitted. Upon hearing the remark, arched his eyebrow in surprise, silently questioning who could boast so boldly. In response, his friend leaned in closer and explained that the sword in question belonged to, specifying that it was Joe from First High who was being discussed. Rumors circulated that Joe possessed a B-rank power known as Swift Gale, and he had already advanced from having no rank to achieving rank 1 status among ability users. Gave a slight smile when he heard the comment, recognizing that this was the person everyone expected to win the top spot in this year's martial exam. Deep down, he wondered which of them was actually the stronger one. A few moments passed before a powerful voice echoed above the commotion, outside the testing area. The chief commander overseeing the city martial exam that year called for the candidates' attention. Before starting the event, he prepared to remind everyone of the most important rules. The test was scheduled to begin precisely at 9 in the morning and would conclude 12 hours later, at 9 in the evening. Participants were informed that the location for the exam was the devastated town situated just behind the speaker. Like in past years, the space is sectioned off into 4 parts: the outer ring, the middle zone, the inner ring, and the core sector. Defeating monsters of various kinds and levels would grant varying point values. More powerful creatures would reward higher scores. The core sector resembled extra credit problems on an exam designed specifically for the most skilled students to tackle. People were warned not to risk everything in pursuit of those elusive points. As explained, the situation reflected on how just 9 days earlier he would never have considered venturing beyond the safety of the outer ring, yet now he realized he needed to set his sights on reaching the inner ring, and perhaps even the very center. The organizers informed everyone that exam supplies would be handed out next. They instructed the students to receive their materials from their homeroom teacher, one after another, in an orderly fashion. While distributing the materials, the teacher clarified that there were a total of 3 items. The equipment included a smartwatch designed to track both the quantity and species of monsters defeated, instantly updating the user's score. Alongside that, there was a rugged tactical backpack stocked with 2 energy bars, an energy drink, and a disposable, enough provisions to last half a day. Lastly, there was a protective sphere that, when triggered, formed an electrified barrier strong enough to keep standard creatures at bay. Once the conversation ended, the teacher's worry didn't fade. Instead, he quietly motioned for to step to the side. He reminded that activating the safety sphere would immediately terminate his participation in the exam, but insisted that safety was far more important than the test. Responded with a gentle smile, assuring his teacher that he understood and expressing his gratitude. Right before he stepped inside, hurried over and called out too, asking if he was still without a group and inviting him to join theirs. Even who had only just discovered her C-rank ability, promised to support once they entered. Several members of the group quickly voiced their disagreement. While they could understand the class representative's kindness in ordinary situations, this was an exam with strict rules. Each team could only have 5 members, including anyone extra would put their own chances of success at risk. GS quickly retorted, reminding the other person that they had made an agreement, and now the other seemed to be withdrawing from it. Both individuals refused to back down, their stubbornness unwavering. No one had expected that he would truly arrive. Determined, she resolved not to be burdened by anyone who couldn't keep up. Upon hearing those words, reached out and pulled backward, preventing him from losing his temper. Old, who served as the class representative, was thanked for his support, but the speaker insisted on entering alone, urging the others to remain with their group. Noticing the determination in his expression, the others felt they had no choice but to agree, silently urging him to stay safe. The pair who had rejected him didn't waste any time and swiftly led away. Deciding to move on, they chose to join forces with instead. Once the others had departed, a subtle smile appeared on Ace. He spoke with unwavering confidence, declaring that he could achieve high scores on his own, even in her absence. As countless drones filled the sky with their constant humming, the announcer's powerful voice echoed across the area. The martial arts examination of 7 City for the year 2030 was now. High-tech drones for monitoring and tracking had been activated, and the live broadcast of the event had commenced. In a heartbeat, throngs of candidates surged into the crumbling ruins, their voices echoing with fierce determination. Among the uproar, several participants shouted their ambitions as they sprinted forward, declaring their dreams of reaching Ability University and vowing that this would be the year everyone remembered their names. Cousins stood among the group. Among them was Joe, known by many as the favorite to become the top scorer. trailed close to the group ahead, his heart pounding with anticipation as he approached the martial exam that awaited him. The moment he stepped into the testing area, his smartwatch screen illuminated with a new alert. The system, the candidate as a senior from Class 5 at City Second High School, with the examination ID number 178. The current live rankings placed Joe from City First High in the lead with 7 points. Following closely in second was Lee Sun, also from City First High, who had earned 5 points. In third place stood, representing the same school with a total of 4 points. Looked over the data and quietly acknowledged that First High's strongest competitor was already out hunting beasts. Realizing this, he understood it was now his moment to take action. Realizing that the core region remained a long distance away, he decided to make his way directly toward it. After sprinting for some time, abruptly stopped in his tracks, motionless. In front of him, another student was sprawled on the ground, surrounded by a spreading puddle of blood, struggling to stay alive. Upon witnessing the situation unfolding in front of him, let out a weary sigh. The severity of the wounds was apparent. The victim hadn't managed to use the safety sphere in time. It became clear to why his teacher had repeatedly urged him to withdraw from the exam. If not for awakening an S-rank ability, the character realized their fate would likely have mirrored that unfortunate outcome. During the martial exam, regrets held no place as each opportunity carried its own risks. Few individuals were ever given the chance to challenge their destiny. With this understanding in mind, swiftly tapped his watch, reaching out to the logistics team for assistance. At that moment, footsteps could be heard drawing nearer, their echoes filling the air. Just moments after, a dark creature emerged silently from the shadows of the corner. Felt a wave of dread wash over him as he realized the creature had intentionally spared that student, using them as a lure to draw in unsuspecting people who ventured too near. The entire situation had been a carefully crafted trap set by it. The creature moved forward at a deliberate pace, closing the distance with each measured step. Suddenly and without any sign, the creature sprang directly toward him. Fortune favored, as his increased power allowed him to swiftly retreat just in time to evade the attack by a slim margin. As he gazed at the creature, he quickly assessed its features: claws built for speed and precision, along with jaws capable of delivering a bite force surpassing 1,000 kilograms. There could be no mistaking it. This was the infamous rookie killer everyone spoke of. Creatures earned the name fierce due to the wild and intimidating presence they carried, a force so strong it could overwhelm and break the spirit of those they hunted. Most awakeners, when confronted by these creatures for the first time, were rumored to buckle beneath their overwhelming presence. Barely managing to use a fraction of their power, many even surrendered before the battle could begin. Wealthy families frequently employed bodyguards with special abilities to escort their children into the wilderness, helping them gain experience in battling wild creatures from a young age. Had never experienced that kind of ease. He stood before a beast for the very first time in his life. While he was still processing this realization, the shadow cat sprang at him once more. The creature's sharp claws hovered just an instant from tearing into him, held his spear with a firm grasp as sparks of electricity danced along its length. Without hesitation, he drove his weapon upward with force, delivering a single fatal strike that ended the shadow cat's life instantly. He noticed that the aura everyone talked about seemed to have no impact on him whatsoever. After flinging the creature's body away, a mechanical voice echoed in the air, announcing that they had been defeated. The message also revealed that the beast was unranked and rewarded 3 additional ability points. Beasts fell into a ranking system that ranged from rank 1 up to rank 9. Any creature that did not reach rank 1 was labeled as unranked and was seen as equal in strength to human awakeners. Upon noticing the notification, realized that defeating Beast Grant would allow him to gain ability points and become stronger. However, he also understood that unranked beasts did not offer many rewards. Because their aura no longer affected him, remaining in the outer ring seemed useless, so he decided he needed to move quickly toward the middle zone. As he traveled, his system repeatedly him of his achievements, announcing that he had defeated a beast and unranked and awarded him 5 additional ability points. The defeat of the Iron High Boar granted an additional 5 unranked ability points. After defeating a series of beasts, let out a deep sigh. He realized he had gathered a substantial number of points, but genuine battle experience still eluded him. Although the Violet Sky Divine Thunder easily defeated the unranked creatures in a single blow, knew that depending on this technique alone would not help him truly improve his abilities. As ability rank increased, so did the energy it consumed. Using Violet Sky Divine Thunder at its maximum would exhaust him in less than an hour, while his former E-rank weak electricity had been sustainable for over 3 hours. The martial exam stretched on for 12 long hours, demanding careful energy management before anyone could even enter the core zone. Knowing this, remained disciplined throughout the journey, relying solely on his spear skills to defeat the beasts he encountered. Each victory added to his growing experience in real combat. After some time had passed, he noticed a rhinoceros with prominent horns standing in the distance. The creature fixed its gaze on him, and without hesitation sprang forward in a ferocious attack. The object rushed nearer with increasing speed. launched himself upward, twisting his body twice midair before landing gracefully. Clutching his spear tightly in both hands, he thrust it directly at the rhino's forehead. The creature slammed onto the earth with a heavy thud as it touched down gracefully, his movements almost showing off his skill. At that instant, he noticed his ability to slay monsters had become more precise than before. He wondered if his mastery of the spear had already reached a new level. He hurriedly summoned his status screen. His stats displayed physique at 141, vitality at 160, and spirit also at 160. Listed under his skills were spear technique at the intermediate level and the lightning gale slash move. He had accumulated 256 ability points. As he had expected, his proficiency with the spear had progressed to the intermediate stage. It was obvious that using the spear in actual battles had contributed the most to his improvement. Having already mastered intermediate spear techniques, he felt a commanding confidence over his weapon. Wondering what new abilities might emerge if he advanced even more, he promptly chose to upgrade his spear skills without a second thought. In that moment, a multitude of shapes raced across his thoughts. His eyes grew large with surprise. A constant stream of complex spear techniques flooded into his mind. He struggled to hold back his excitement, eager to encounter another creature that would challenge his abilities. At the same time, Lynch, who served as the class representative, walked through the area accompanied by members of the UN squad. The sudden sight of a figure bearing a striking resemblance to and appearing to attack caused a jolt of shock. Her teammates reacted with disbelief, dismissing the class representative's concerns. They insisted she must be imagining things, arguing that there was no possibility it could be him. Given his lack of strength, they believed showing up here would be the same as asking for trouble. Paused at their remarks, uncertainty creeping in as she questioned whether she had truly been wrong. Still, the figure she had glimpsed from behind bore an uncanny resemblance to. At that moment, a voice from within the group urged everyone to take a look at the horned rhino. Ching moved nearer, studying the scene intently. He noticed the body was still warm, with blood that hadn't yet dried, indicating the person had passed away only moments earlier. Deep injuries marked the head, and judging by the precise holes, deduced they were caused by some kind of pole weapon. He suspected a spear had delivered the deadly blow. Her complexion drained of color as realization struck her. She wondered if the person she had seen before truly was. One of the teammates shot a scornful look, clearly doubting him. He couldn't believe anyone would think he'd taken down the rhino, since that kind of monster could only be defeated alone by an E-rank awakened. To him, the idea that was responsible was simply out of the question. Someone in the group proposed that instead of guessing, they could simply look up his score ranking to find the answer. Lynching opened and noticed that in 46th place was from City Second High with 256 points. Shocked to see his name, she let out a gasp, realizing it truly was him. Her teammates stared in disbelief. The idea that could have made it into the top 50 seemed impossible to them. They couldn't accept it and suspected it must just be someone with a similar name. They wondered how someone ranked only as a first-level awakener could possess so much power. Outside, the onlookers gathered, murmuring with excitement as their eyes stayed fixed on the massive display. First High continued to lead the rankings, nearly claiming all of the top 10 spots. Among them, Joe stood out, having already reached 412 points. It seemed unlikely anyone would surpass his score. For years, City had been without a provincial winner, but perhaps this year would be different. Seated in the spectator section, who led City's education bureau, let out a soft laugh. He took pride in Joe, the city's star competitor. Joe's mastery of the swift gale power made him a force to be reckoned with. Even when facing challengers from the entire province, felt confident that Joe would keep up. In his opinion, Joe had a strong chance of ranking among the top 10 both in the city and the wider province. Old continued speaking, expressing his satisfaction with First High's achievements, and noting that Third High had at last managed to get a student into the top 10. The principals of both schools smiled proudly at his words and hurried to express their gratitude, crediting Chief Jean's leadership for their success, and assuring him of their continued dependence on his support. Shifted his gaze, his face clouded with displeasure, and directed his attention to the principal of Second High. He pointed out that their school had to improve, noting critically that even their top student was placed only 18th in the rankings. Principal Yao of Second High gritted his teeth in frustration, noting that only 8 students from their school ranked among the top 50. As he thought of Li Ming Yang, and he silently urged these students to bring honor to the school. A realization suddenly dawned on him. He couldn't recall ever hearing the name before and questioned whether this person was even a member of the elite class. Behind the student, the homeroom teacher caught sight of the name as well. Discovering ranked among the top 50 filled the teacher with utter disbelief. Many people had believed this boy to be an E-rank awakener, but now they wondered if he had been concealing his true strength the whole time. The crowd struggled to understand how someone ranked so low could possibly reveal the abilities of an S-rank overnight. The situation was even more frustrating because just the top 10 participants received live tracking feeds. Couldn't be seen on any screens, leaving everyone puzzled about how he was achieving such a high score. The scene on the broadcast returned to the field, revealing as he entered the central area, a place known for its heightened risks. He intentionally pressed his foot down onto a glass bottle, causing it to break apart with a sudden, piercing snap. Observing the quiet surroundings, he realized that just as he had anticipated, there were fewer beasts in this area. Creatures ranked 1 and higher were intelligent and protective of their territory, which made them much more challenging to confront than those without a rank. Before he had time to process his thoughts, the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder and more forceful. In an instant, a pair of vehicles in front of him were tossed away effortlessly, resembling discarded playthings. A ferocious creature suddenly appeared, letting out a wild roar. Instantly knew what it was, a blade-armed tiger classified as a rank 1 beast. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he realized his good fortune. He had only just arrived in the middle zone and had already encountered someone ranked first. She saw this as an ideal opportunity to put her spear skills to the test. The tiger, equipped with sharp blades on its limbs and driven by its wild instincts, let out an enraged roar as it barreled ahead, its powerful frame surging toward with the unstoppable force of a tank. Despite the situation, remained completely calm, his gaze steady and untroubled by any sign of fear. With a powerful pull, he lifted the dark spear he'd been dragging, causing it to whirl through the air like the blades of a massive windmill. A thunderous crash echoed through the air as the tip of the spear collided with the tiger's sharp claw. The force of the blow left the tiger, despite its formidable bladed claws, unable to feel its own paws. Hid a mocking smile, unimpressed by the rank 1 blade-armed tiger's display of power. In his mind, he doubted any creature but the Tiger King itself could ever truly challenge him. He bellowed a fierce threat to end his opponent's life and lunged ahead, gripping his spear tightly as he attacked. With his spear skills now reaching a higher level, his attacks moved at speeds far greater than before. The creature was unable to respond in time to the blindingly swift attack. In an instant, a blow tore through its abdomen, leaving a gaping, bowl-sized wound with a sickening wet crunch. A typical animal would have fallen immediately after suffering an injury like that. The tiger responded with a fierce, bone-chilling roar that echoed its seething anger. Once more, overwhelmed by wild rage, the creature hurled itself toward him with uncontrollable aggression. As anticipated from a top-ranked beast, its endurance was incredible. Never thought he could defeat it in just one strike, especially without relying on his special power. With movements as smooth and powerful as a dragon, he wielded the obsidian spear, meeting the monstrous opponent in a brutal battle. Every blow from his weapon left a fresh, bleeding gash on the creature's flesh. Because of its massive size and limited range, the tiger struggled to inflict any significant harm on him. Gripped his spear and twisted it sharply, his tone icy as he declared that any resistance would be in vain. Intense bursts of electricity surged and danced fiercely across the length of the weapon. In the blink of an eye, he broke the spear, unleashing streaks of lightning that slithered through the air like deadly snakes, aiming directly at the tiger's head. As anticipated, bolts of lightning crashed directly onto the skull of the tiger, whose head bristled with sharp blades. The enormous, battered creature collapsed onto the earth, sending a thick cloud of dust billowing into the air. The system announced that the blade-armed tiger had been defeated, awarding 14 ability points for the achievement. Looked over his panel and noted to himself that defeating a rank 1 beast rewarded him with almost twice as many points as taking down an unranked creature. The more powerful the creature, the more ability points could be gained from it. While most people viewed the exam as a deadly ordeal, the narrator saw it as a valuable opportunity to grow stronger. Determination blazed in his eyes as he realized an opportunity lay before him. He knew he needed to take action now and gather as many points as he could. At the same time, inside the conference hall, this display kept flashing as new scores appeared. From City First High's class, 31SD held the lead with 345 points. Not far behind from City Second High's class, 32ND had 328 points, matching Lee, who also represented City Second High. The teachers reacted with astonishment. They realized it was Fan from Class 5 who had achieved such a feat. Among all the classes at a similar level, only his had a student make it into the top 50, which impressed everyone. They agreed that later in the year should give a presentation to share the strategies he used. Embarrassed by the praise, Fan hurriedly any special credit, insisting that the students' hard work was what truly led to their success. At that moment, a voice called out in surprise as everyone noticed that had suddenly climbed higher. He was now in 25th place with 372 points, representing City Second High. Amazed whispers spread as people realized he had gained 44 points in a single leap. The chief of the Education Bureau appeared visibly shocked. According to the grading criteria, defeating a peak unranked creature would earn between 6 and 8 points, while overcoming a rank 1 lower creature would be rewarded with 14 to 16 points. The smartwatch recorded a kill every 4 seconds, indicating that managed to defeat either 5 unranked beasts at their peak or 3 beasts ranked at level 1 within that brief time. Such impressive results hadn't been witnessed in years. He glanced over at Principal, silently acknowledging the remarkable talent of the student and wondering why he had never heard of until now. Principal's lips curled into a forced smile, betraying his recent discovery of the situation, admitting his own lack of information. He indicated that anyone seeking specifics would need to consult the boy's homeroom teacher. He quickly pulled Fan closer and urged him to explain civilities and background to the leaders. Fan became paralyzed with fear, his words catching in his throat, as he hesitated in front of Director and Principal Jing Ming, who had recently developed a weak E-rank ability to control electricity. Principal's eyes widened in surprise when he heard the news. He questioned teacher about whether Fan was really only at E rank. Fan could only scratch his head in resignation and confirmed that it was true, explaining that he had even cautioned the student against choosing the martial path before the exam. The bureau chief took a measured sip of tea, his demeanor unruffled. He mused that if someone had managed to advance this much relying solely on, it must mean they possessed remarkable abilities beyond that. This realization only deepened the bureau chief's fascination with the individual. At the current rate, it seemed inevitable that he would soon climb into the top 10. They believed that once he acted, the truth would finally come to light. If his actions revealed dishonesty, it would confirm their suspicions of cheating. Hearing those words, principal and teacher turned noticeably pale, nervous sweat breaking out along their spines. With each passing moment, they updated again. Li now held the 8th position, followed by in 9th. Secured 10th place, Yi Li took 11th, and Tang rounded out the 12th spot. Tang gazed intently at the board, her mind slowly piecing together the truth. It became clear to her that cousin was behind it all. She recalled the move from the previous day and realized that only he could have made such a decisive strike. Even Zhou, who was securely holding on to the first place spot, found himself murmuring in surprise. With 6 hours still remaining in the exam, an unknown contender had suddenly climbed into the top 10. Was unfamiliar to him, someone he had never encountered before. Inside, the crumbling remains pressed on with his tireless pursuit. Once more, the system emitted a chime, announcing that the Shadow Cat had been defeated. It reported the creature's rank as 1 and awarded 14 additional ability points. Concealed a satisfied smile, realizing that, just as he had predicted, tracking down beasts in the middle zone proved to be much more productive. Looked up at the tracking drones swirling overhead, realizing he had made it into the top 10 competitors. The martial exam measured more than just physical power. It also judged each person's potential, and the highest scorers always attracted the most notice. He had no intention of concealing his abilities. Reaching the top 10 was just the start for him. However, before entering the core zone, he knew he had to strengthen himself once more. He summoned his status panel and read through the details. His name appeared at the top, followed by his rank. His unique ability, Annihilation Thunder Physique, stood out. The numbers showed 141 in vitality, 160 in spirit, and 160 in skills. His proficiency in spear technique had reached the advanced level, while his lightning gale step was still at the beginner stage. At the bottom, the panel displayed 312 available ability points. He stared in surprise at the number, unable to believe that even with more than 300 points saved up, his rank remained unchanged. There was only a single route from Awakener to true ability user, and that was through cultivating one's abilities. Accepting this, the character decided to enhance their fundamental stats even more. His body grew stronger as his physique increased by 40 and his spirit by 22, sending a rush of newfound energy through him. A satisfied grin spread across his face. Everything felt just right. Confidently, he prepared to enter the core zone. As soon as he moved ahead, the system erupted with a bright red alert, signaling that he had entered the core zone where danger was at its highest level. Soon after, he came across a group of tigers with sharp blades for arms, feasting hungrily on the remains of a horned rhino, its body already half-eaten. A creature of enormous size, much bigger than any of the others, hunched over the lifeless body. The figure standing in the center caught everyone's attention with its powerful presence and massive form. Its unusually long, blade-like arms left no doubt. It could only be the infamous blade-armed Tiger King. His eyes sparkled with anticipation as he realized that a great opportunity for gain was unfolding before him. In the very next moment, his face grew stern and serious. He spun around abruptly, announcing that he was aware of someone's presence and demanding that they reveal themselves. Emerging from the darkness, Joe walked forward, a subtle smile on his face. He acknowledged its awareness, expressing that he was impressed to be noticed. Joe then identified as the newcomer who had recently entered the top 10. When heard someone mention his name, a frown creased his forehead as he wondered how this person recognized him. Yang let out a quiet laugh, his eyes glinting with curiosity. He was certain he recognized every powerful contender who had made it to the core zone, except for this unfamiliar face before him. When someone unknown appeared out of nowhere, it became obvious to him. This newcomer had to be the mysterious challenger causing upheaval among the rankings. Joe revealed that his attention had been fixed on this group of tigers with blades for some time. When noticed the sword Joe held, his gaze became sharp and suspicious, silently accusing Joe of attempting to take the prey for himself. Yang raised his hand in a hurried gesture, clarifying his intentions. He explained that the Tiger King was considered a mid-level beast, and with 9 more accompanying it in the group, it would be impossible for any individual to defeat them alone. He suggested that working together would be their best option. To his astonishment, interrupted him with a frosty tone, refusing any assistance. Turning away, marched confidently toward the beasts, silently declaring that he could handle things by himself. He moved ahead, climbing onto the roof of a toppled bus, his eyes fixed boldly on the group of tigers before him. As soon as he appeared, the tiger with blades for arms tensed up, instantly on guard. Observed with composure that, just as he anticipated from a group with a leader, the pack managed to arrange themselves into a basic formation. The Tiger King let out a thunderous roar, immediately drawing the attention of several nearby beasts toward himself. In the very next moment they lunged forward, their growls echoing like rolling thunder. From his spot on the edge of the action, Joe observed with a subtle, knowing smile. He silently wondered whether this reckless individual was simply courting disaster or secretly harboring some extraordinary talent. Rotated his spear in a slow, relaxed manner, giving the impression of effortless ease. The weapon spun with increasing speed, transforming into a whirlwind of gleaming metal. The first tiger lunged forward, but its claws were violently knocked aside by the whirling power of the spinning spear. In one swift, merciless motion, moved through the fray, cutting down a group of blade-armed tigers as effortlessly as a reaper harvesting souls. The system announced the defeat of a blade-armed tiger at rank 1 lower, awarding 10 ability points. Shortly after, another blade-armed tiger at rank 1 mid was vanquished, granting an additional 15 ability points. Beast after beast collapsed under the force of his spear, their lifeless forms stacking up on the earth. As his followers fell to the ground, the Tiger King narrowed his eyes and released a deep, threatening growl. Cast a brief look at his spear, and with a hint of disappointment, thought to himself that his physical strength was still lacking. He regretted not being able to eliminate all of his enemies in a single strike. The Tiger King, with blades extending from his arms, surged forward and bridged the gap between them in an instant. A thunderous sound burst forth from the creature's mouth. Without warning, the glass in every window lining the street exploded into countless fragments. Joe pressed his hands tightly over his ears, his features contorted with unbearable pain. Responded with an icy stare, remaining unfazed by the outburst that might have intimidated others. He silently asserted that such threats held no power over him. He lunged ahead, gripping his spear tightly. The weapon met the force of the Tiger King's powerful blow, stopping his massive attack in its tracks. With the force of the recoil, propelled himself upward, soaring high above the ground. Before the creature had a chance to respond, he gripped his spear tightly and turned twice in rapid succession, his body whirling through the air. Summoning every ounce of power he possessed, he brought the weapon crashing down upon the Tiger King's head. In a heartbeat, he found himself balanced on the creature's back, his spear aimed downward in preparation. A sharp, unsettling noise echoed through the air when the spear drove straight through its target. The system emitted a chime, announcing that the blade-armed Tiger King, a rank 1 upper creature, had been defeated. The message also revealed that 20 ability points were awarded. Joe remained motionless, his eyes stretched in shock. He could hardly believe that someone had managed to defeat everyone at once. The thought crossed his mind that this person might not even be human. Looked out over the countless tiger bodies scattered before him, feeling a wave of satisfaction as he realized just how many ability points he had earned. He wondered just how high his total might climb by the time the exam finished. His gaze grew intense, and he thought that finding as many as possible would be best. He realized he needed to track down an expat quickly. As he started to walk away, Yang called out to him, her voice filled with astonishment. She demanded to know how he had managed to defeat an entire group of tigers using only a spear, questioning whether he possessed some sort of enhancement ability. Replied with just 2 words, revealing his power as lightning type, before walking off without glancing behind him. Yang's expression contorted with fury as suspicion grew in his mind about the lightning-type claim. He refused to believe the explanation, feeling insulted by what he considered a blatant lie. Frustrated, he decided that if the truth wouldn't be told, he didn't want to hear any more excuses. He silently judged the other person, thinking their personality was truly unpleasant. He hurriedly lifted his smartwatch, wondering if all the monsters he had just defeated had allowed his score to match hers already. In an instant, the outcome left him stunned. From City's second high had claimed the top spot with a score of 11.22 points, while Joe from City First High followed in second place with 985 points. Yang almost cried out in frustration as he realized with disbelief that his rival had managed to get ahead of him. At the same time, inside the viewing hall, the director could not hide his admiration. He marveled at the powerful way the spear was handled. Though he was just 18, his skills were already on par with seasoned experts. In the director's eyes was a true prodigy. Director expressed his confidence that with on their side, City would surely secure a spot among the province's top 100 schools. He also mentioned his intention to suggest an award for second high after the exams. Principal's face lit up with happiness as he gratefully acknowledged director's support. At that instant, overwhelming emotion nearly brought him to tears as he realized was nothing short of a miracle, and for the first time in ages, he believed their school might finally have a chance to thrive again. 3 hours had passed, yet Joe continued to wander restlessly through the core zone. Confusion clouded his mind as he wondered where all the beasts had disappeared to. A voice from behind responded, suggesting he direct his question to the person in first place. When he turned around, surprise flickered in his eyes. He wondered aloud when the others had started working as a team. Wu had secured third place, Ming followed in fourth, and Tang came in ninth. Tang explained in a calm, even tone that the result was because of him. His hands tightened into fists as anger surged through her, had wiped out nearly all the beasts in the core zone, leaving nothing for anyone else to hunt. With no prey left, they were forced to team up. Yang stared in disbelief, unable to accept what he was seeing. He knew it couldn't be true. After all, the core zone was supposed to be crawling with countless beasts. Tang moved forward, his eyes fixed on the other person. From their expression, he could easily tell they hadn't reviewed the rankings recently. He urged them to check's latest score. Displayed on those were the rankings. At the top was a student from city holding 435 points, and placed second in the second year of high school. Following was Joe, also from city, with 11.03 points. Ranked first in the third year, Wu with 945 points was listed next, representing city as well, and standing first among the senior students. Upon seeing these results, Joe was rendered speechless by the outcome. Tang clarified the situation, pointing out that even after deducting the more than 700 points he had collected in the middle zone, there were still over 2,500 points left. This indicated that he had defeated almost 200 beasts just within the core zone. Yang struggled to process the situation, realizing that the reason for the earlier protectiveness over his target now made sense. It became clear to him that the plan had been set in motion from the very beginning. Tang announced that only a short time remained, and explained that the group was preparing to join forces and venture into the deepest part of the area. Yang realized that location was guarded by the least powerful beast among the high ranks, yet there were even rank 2 beast kings present. Attempting to enter alone would be a death sentence. His hands balled even as she considered the situation. She understood that this was precisely the reason they needed to work together. The decision now rested on whether the other person would agree to join them. As darkness settled over the land, perched alone on a pile of slain beasts, all of his materials had disappeared, and time was quickly running out for the test. To gain additional ability points, the character realized they would need to venture further inward. However, they knew that the deepest area was inhabited by rank 2 beasts, which posed a significant threat. Understanding this, the character concluded that increasing their strength beforehand was essential. He accessed his status panel, which displayed his rank, his ability titled Purple Heaven Thunder, and his current standing. His physique measured at 181, while his spirit reached 182. The panel also showed his skills. His spear technique was marked as advanced, and his lightning gale strike was at the beginner level. Finally, he had accumulated a total of 2,413 ability points. He gazed at the enormous pile of points and wondered to himself where he ought to allocate them. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to stop overthinking and place them all in a single category. A rush of energy coursed through, making him grin with confidence. He felt certain that he was now prepared to face the ultimate opponent in the martial exam. The final dash was. They wondered which rank 2 beast would be released as the last challenge of the year. Yang and the others continued forward, but an unexpected scene ahead caused them all to stop in terror. Standing in front of them was a ferocious bear, its eyes filled with a savage thirst for blood. Trouble was well known among everyone, its tough hide considered even stronger than E-grade alloy. Even powerful missiles failed to leave a mark on this rare beast. A single swipe of the beast's paw had enough force to flatten every one of them. The expression on Yang's face grew grim. Tang let out a weary sigh, feeling defeated by the situation. He believed it was time to give up on their current efforts. Although the fierce bear remained still, merely entering this area would cause them to be annihilated by the top-ranked high-tier beasts. She lifted her hand with determination, signaling her decision. Apologizing to the group in her mind, she made it clear she was stepping away. To her, no achievement was valuable enough to risk her own safety. Yang slammed his foot against the floor in frustration, silently cursing whoever had created such a cruel exam question. As the group prepared to fall back, suddenly called out, drawing everyone's attention to a figure in the distance. She pointed out that someone was approaching, and it appeared to be. As expected, he came running toward them from afar, his pace quick and determined. His actions unfolded with remarkable grace and speed, every footfall landing with the smooth accuracy of a gentle stream. His gaze brightened with recognition as she spotted, silently marveling at his striking appearance. Meanwhile, Joe regarded her reaction with disdain, scoffing inwardly at the idea that good looks mattered when facing the deadly chaos of a beast horde. As soon as arrived, the group grew restless, his appearance causing an instant commotion among them. Without warning, a swarm of beasts charged toward him all at the same time. The noise attracted an even larger crowd of creatures, all pouring in from the back. In just a few seconds, found himself completely encircled. At last, the swarm of monstrous creatures engulfed him completely, making him disappear from view. Yang let out a sharp, dismissive laugh, silently condemning the recklessness that could only lead to disaster. In his mind, anyone meeting such a fate had only themselves to blame. Across from him, Wu's words shook with fear, unable to believe that might truly be gone. Meanwhile, Tang whirled around, determination burning in his gaze as he resolved that he had to step in and offer his aid. The others seized him without hesitation, their faces filled with alarm as they questioned his sanity, insisting that he was risking his life for no reason and reminding him of his own recent words. Despite their protests, Tang's voice quivered with emotion as he revealed the truth. They could not comprehend his determination, for was his cousin, and he refused to watch his family perish without trying to help. A subtle flicker of light suddenly shimmered from the depths of the crowd. In the next instant, a deafening clap of thunder erupted, and streaks of lightning shot out from the spot where it had disappeared. A brilliant bolt of lightning lit up the sky so intensely that Joe and his companions had to cover their faces to block the glare. They were stunned and confused, wondering if this sudden lightning strike could possibly be power in action. In the middle of the courtyard stood upright, his figure encased in shimmering bolts of lightning that danced across his body. He stared at the heap of slain creatures and realized a hard fact. Sheer force would never be enough to defeat such a large group of powerful rank 1 monsters. Understanding this, he understood he must finally use his special power. The sheer force and dominance on display matched exactly what one would anticipate from someone wielding an S-rank power. Without warning, the earth trembled beneath a deep pulsing beat that echoed, tum tum tum. The massive, ferocious bear towered above, standing on its back legs and reaching a height of over 5 meters, its presence as intimidating as a tank preparing to charge. Witnessing the destruction of its minions, the creature unleashed a roar filled with rage. Squinted, carefully assessing his opponent. The creature was massive and radiated immense strength, yet its movements lacked speed and grace. Confident in the power of Purple Heaven Thunder, believed he could manage this threat. Despite their presence, the minor creatures served only as insignificant obstacles. With that decision made, the character prepared to sweep the area before proceeding. He channeled the energy of the Purple Heaven Thunder directly into his veins. In a sudden burst of motion, he lunged ahead with the speed and force of a launched cannonball. In an instant, multiple rushing creatures were ripped to pieces. The system announced that a rank 1 high tier had been defeated, awarding 13 ability points. His mind raced with excitement as he realized he was experiencing the physical surge of an S-rank ability. The sensation was astonishing. Even though the electricity running through his body felt perilous, and he knew he couldn't sustain it for long, he marveled at its power. The power at hand was more than sufficient to defeat the monsters before him. The rank 1 high-tier unicorn rhino fell, granting an additional 15 ability points. As the rhinoceros collapsed, the enraged bear could no longer restrain itself and charged at with a furious roar. A gigantic paw slammed through the air, tearing it apart with overwhelming strength. Enveloped in crackling lightning appeared hazy and ghost-like, his form shifting like a mirage. He re-emerged at a distance, already several meters from where he had vanished. Fueled by anger, the massive bear lunged forward with incredible speed, crossing over 30 meters almost instantaneously. The bear charged forward with impressive speed, yet managed to outpace it. In one swift motion, he sprang aside, skillfully avoiding the attack without difficulty. He moved swiftly through the crowd, so fast that the raging bear couldn't even touch him. A rank 1 high-tier horned lizard fell, and the system immediately that 15 ability points had been earned for slaying the beast. Each time a creature was defeated, the system's alerts echoed the achievement. The bear's frustration intensified with every missed strike, its anger building as it failed to connect with its target. Gave a sly grin, clearly amused as he noticed the frustration brewing in his opponent. He taunted them, pointing out that their followers seemed to be falling one after another. He curled his lips into a sneer, assuring his opponent that there was no need to worry. After he finished dealing with the final obstacle, their own time would come. Without hesitation, he sprinted directly at the last remaining unicorn rhino. Without warning, the aggressive bear hurled its massive paw through the air, bringing it crashing down directly where stood. Squinted, frustration flickering in his gaze, as he realized the opponent had anticipated his action. A thunderous sound echoed as the two enormous hands collided with force. The force of the blast hurled the surrounding vehicles high into the air, tossing them several meters away. When the creature finally unclenched its massive claws, nothing remained within them except the broken pieces of the rhino's body. A jagged flash of lightning tore through the clouds, appeared from high above, surrounded by crackling electricity. Electricity danced along his form as he gripped his spear with determination and plunged directly toward the bear. With all distractions gone, the challenger focused intently, eager to test whether the creature's tough, armor-like skin could endure the full force of their thunderous power. The spear lunged ahead with a thunderous sound, piercing into the furious bear. A deafening thunderclap erupted, shaping itself into a gigantic orb of lightning that burst apart the moment it struck. A powerful shockwave erupted, driving Joe and his companions to cover their faces in an attempt to protect themselves. Inside the viewing hall, the crowd stared in shock, unable to hide their amazement at the frightening power had just revealed. Director forcefully struck the table, his frustration evident as he glared at Principal. He questioned how such a weak power could be considered an E-rank ability, clearly finding the explanation unbelievable. One of the principals whispered in amazement, marveling at how someone could defeat top-ranked elites and even stand their ground against a second-rank boss. This seemed to be more than just a simple rank. It might surpass the usual limits altogether. Principal was left speechless, barely able to stutter out a suggestion that perhaps it could be some kind of mutation. Director's eyes sparkled with anticipation, convinced that after this day everyone in the Federation would recognize the name. At the same time, sent the already aggressive bear into a wild rage. Saliva sprayed from its open jaws as it let out a thunderous roar, appearing as though it was about to swallow him in one bite. Spraying backward, his eyes wide with disbelief, he realized that despite using all his strength, his attack had barely made a mark. It became clear why this creature was considered a rare rank 2 beast. Its sharp, dense fur was stronger than steel and completely resistant to electricity. With the power currently possessed, attempting to defeat it in a single blow by surpassing 2 ranks was simply out of reach. Enraged by its constant defeats, the bear completely lost control. Dark, smoky energy erupted from its body as it went into a wild frenzy, determined to rip to pieces. A moment later, a powerful strike slammed down with deafening force. Braced himself with his spear, attempting to defend, yet the force of the shockwave hurled him back several meters. The creature's berserk ability had already been activated much earlier than expected, making it clear that it held a strong animosity toward him. Crimson fire glowed in the creature's eyes while its enormous claws smashed into the spot. He had narrowly escaped. The ground split open in response to the creature's rage, its deafening roar echoing up toward the sky. The creature attacked once more but moved swiftly, just barely avoiding each blow with quick reflexes. Its physical strength surged to astonishing levels whenever it entered a berserk state. The creature had paid with its mind. Any trace of intelligence had vanished. In its place stood a relentless predator, driven solely by raw instinct to hunt and destroy. Direct confrontation would be unwise. Relying on agility would prove most effective in gradually weakening the opponent. Without warning, lost consciousness and collapsed, pitching forward. The spear struck the bear's hindquarters with brutal force. The enraged bear let out a pained roar as it crashed heavily to the earth. His voice, low and fierce, urged an attack while the enemy was vulnerable, drawing upon his own thunderous energy. Bolts of violet lightning crashed down from the sky, detonating against the creature and forcing anguished screams from deep within its throat. As the storm faded, squinted at the smoking, convulsing figure, wondering if it had finally died. Offered a subtle smile, confident in the power of 30 seconds of purple heaven thunder. He believed that no defense known to man could endure such a force. Without warning, the savage bear's crimson eyes flew open, blazing with a fierce hunger. A huge paw crashed downward, but before it could make contact, bolts of lightning surged through the creature's body, freezing it in place. His eyes grew steely with determination, signaling that the moment to finish everything had arrived. The spear whirled in his grip, radiating an overwhelming and relentless power. With a single powerful strike, everything in its path was destroyed. The fierce bear fell to the ground with a deafening noise, lifeless where it landed. The system emitted a clear chime, announcing that a rank 2 low-tier violent bear had been defeated. As a result, 24 ability points were awarded. Let out a relieved breath, feeling a sense of completion wash over him. He reflected on how leveling up Lightning Storm Strike in preparation for this battle had been a wise decision. The effort he had put in had clearly paid off. The fight may have only spanned a couple of minutes, but for him, it was the most thrilling experience he had ever faced in combat. He leaned his head backward, a bright spark in his eyes as he wondered how many points he would earn after conquering the whole core region. Inside the control room, those present remained motionless, stunned by what they witnessed. This display shimmered, revealing the latest rankings. At the top, From City Second High School held first place with 10,835 points. Right behind, Joe of City First High School secured second place, earning 1,103 points. In third, Wu, also from City First High School, had accumulated 945 points. Director sprang up from his seat in utter astonishment. Scoring 10,000 points meant that someone had not only surpassed City's record, but had also demolished the provincial record. In his mind, this wasn't just the work of a genius, it was the achievement of someone extraordinary, a true prodigy among prodigies. A different spectator pointed out that the previous year's provincial champion had earned just above 8,000 points, making it clear that had already all but guaranteed this year's victory. In the testing grounds, looked down at the defeated creature, fully aware that the conclusion of the challenge was fast approaching. The inner and core areas had already been secured, leaving only the mid-zone to be searched. Next, every creature found there would make a difference regardless of how little it added to the total. As he began to walk away, Tang and her companions appeared from the shadows behind him. Tang stared in shock, hardly able to believe what she had witnessed. Had just taken down a rank 2 Beast King, an incredible feat that seemed almost impossible. Despite his overwhelming lead in points, he was now turning back. Tang wondered why he didn't simply finish the exam ahead of time. Knit together while she observed, realizing he seemed to be making his way back toward the mid-zone. A sudden realization hit her. She couldn't believe it. Was he really ruthless enough to take out everyone on the field? The group stopped in their tracks, stunned by the suggestion. They wondered if he truly intended to eliminate every remaining creature in the test. Joe was the first to respond, quickly realizing that with such speed the other person actually had a chance of succeeding. He understood that if they didn't act immediately, they'd be left with nothing in the final hour. Without waiting, he apologized to the others, declaring that their alliance was over as he rushed off on his own. The rest of the group quickly fled, gripped by fear that might destroy all the creatures and leave nothing behind for them to earn any points. About an hour later, the loudspeakers echoed throughout the area, announcing that the City 2037 martial arts exam was now over. Any additional beasts defeated from this point on would not be included in the results, and all participants were instructed to return at once. Tang let out a disappointed sigh, realizing it was already finished. The majority of the students fell to the ground, worn out and bruised from their efforts. Among them, one student let out a cry of anger, feeling the sting of disappointment. That student wondered in frustration why this had to happen at that moment, knowing they had been only one creature away from success, just a single defeat short of passing. At the same time, slung the carcass of a defeated beast over his shoulder. He remarked to himself with disappointment that the battle had ended so soon, feeling regretful that he hadn't even had a chance to get serious. Before long, the examinees began to leave the testing area one by one. Outside, Tang quickly found herself blocked by an enthusiastic girl, who pressed her with curiosity about whether was truly her cousin. Tang rolled her eyes yet again, exasperated as she confirmed for the third time that the person in question was indeed her cousin. The girl's face turned red with embarrassment as she silently pleaded with her older sister to share his number, hoping she would agree just this one time. Tang let out a mocking laugh, recalling how the girl had insisted just the day before that she wasn't interested. Now, however, she was desperate to get his number. The girl, her voice full of urgency, reminded Tang that her feelings had changed. Yesterday was different. Now that he was the highest scorer, she begged Tang for help, pleading for a chance. Right then, a voice rang out announcing survival. As emerged, his long spear resting against his back, a wave of eager classmates surged toward him. He acknowledged them with a serene smile while the atmosphere thrummed with anticipation. A student with a shaved head patted Joe's shoulder and joked that the place at the top should have belonged to him. Joe managed a strained smile and admitted that there was nothing he could do. Second High had turned out a genius. He felt content with the score he had achieved. At that moment, the principal and director walked over with friendly smiles and greeted, giving his hand a firm shake. They offered their congratulations to him and proceeded to make introductions, explaining that director represented the Education Bureau. Instead of letting take the bus home, they assured him that director would drive him back himself. Paused to consider his options, realizing this choice was an improvement. He knew that if he had chosen to ride the bus, he would have faced a barrage of questions the entire trip. Before long, he found himself traveling in director's vehicle. Smiled at, curious to know if he had made up his mind about which ability academy he wanted to go to. Responded with humility, explaining that his recent months had been devoted to intensive training, leaving little time to consider his options for university. Director let out a soft laugh, expressing that the student's impressive score would easily secure admission to any university in the country. However, he went on to reveal that most top-tier ability users actually attended just 3 prestigious academies, and he offered to suggest those schools. Ability University stood as a prominent state institution, situated right in the nation's center. Most of its graduates found themselves entering government service immediately after finishing their studies. Even the country's 9th highest guardian hailed from this renowned university. Ability University stood proudly in a lively port city, teeming with abundant resources and prestigious clubs. It was the ideal place for anyone eager to challenge themselves and reach their full potential. Jinxing Ability University boasted a legacy that stretched back over 2 centuries, its halls filled with time-honored customs and exceptional instructors. Each of its 3 main branches guarded exclusive cultivation techniques, hidden from the rest of the world. For countless students, attending this university was the ultimate aspiration. Gave a nod of understanding before his curiosity took over. He wondered aloud about the way ability users needed special training to grow from simply awakened powers to mastering their full abilities. His thoughts lingered on the question of what distinguished the most advanced training methods from the rest. Clarified that the training manuals were classified as Rank 2. He noted that using standard manuals would require 3 to 4 years for someone to advance, while the most advanced techniques could help a person finish their transformation within only 6 months. He offered a reassuring smile, confident that there was nothing to fear. The test scores alone ensured eligibility for special recruitment. In fact, the most prestigious organizations would compete to offer the most favorable conditions. Ultimately, the decision would rest entirely in their hands. The following day, arrived back at his house and took his time basking in the comfort of a soothing, unhurried shower. He opened his system interface and saw that he still had 2,534 ability points remaining, a total he estimated would be sufficient to carry him through until he started university. He pondered whether the academy organized tournaments for hunting beasts. If such events did not exist, he realized he would have to get ready for journeys into the wild on his own. At that moment, the front door slowly swung open as 2 girls quietly entered. One of them noticed the broken lock and whispered that it was perfect, suggesting they could catch him off guard. He saw that his aunt was there, accompanied by his cousin Tang. As stood in the middle of changing his clothes, a group suddenly burst into the room. The unexpected intrusion left him motionless in shock, Tang, her cheeks bright red from embarrassment, quickly shielded her eyes and demanded an explanation for their abrupt entrance. Hurried into his room, grumbling under his breath about how someone had entered without knocking, and then blamed him for it. After losing his parents, his aunt became his caregiver, surrounding him with affection, looking after his needs, and preparing nourishing meals like bamboo shoots and pork to help him grow healthy and strong. After he finished putting on his clothes, his aunt spoke with a soft voice. She admitted that she never really understood much about martial arts exams, but when she learned that he had registered, concern filled her thoughts for months. Now that he stood before her unharmed, she felt her worries lift. His performance or results were unimportant to her. Even if he hadn't succeeded, it would have been all right. Gazed at Tang with a puzzled expression, clearly surprised. He wondered aloud why Tang hadn't been informed by that he had achieved the top score on the exam. Tang flashed a mischievous smile, thinking it would be best for the other person to explain the situation directly. Brushed his fingers against his nose, a hint of pride in his expression, as he informed that he had performed well, earning more than 10,000 points. His aunt was so startled that she accidentally sprayed her tea everywhere. After wiping her mouth, she struggled to find her words, her disbelief clear as she questioned the truth behind the shocking news. Tang quickly interrupted, assuring their mother that it was all real, had actually earned 11,124 points. Tears rolled down his aunt's cheeks while she pulled him into a close embrace, her voice trembling as she began to call him our. At that moment, emitted a sharp notification sound. A message from the Provincial Education Bureau appeared on his screen, identifying him as a candidate from. The update revealed the results of the recent martial exam, announcing that had secured first place with a remarkable total score of 11,124. He gazed at the screen, a smile spreading across his face as he read the words provincial champion. The realization struck him he had achieved his goal. In a matter of minutes, the story spread rapidly on all social media channels. Doubts began to creep in. Normally, the highest score belonged to a top-ranked, but it was possible for an awakened individual to claim first place. Rumors circulated about an E-rank individual rising to become the provincial champion, and the sheer absurdity of it made someone joke that they would embarrass themselves right then and there if it turned out to be true. The person responded with interest, then began searching for the exam footage, letting others know it would only take a moment. The award ceremony for the 2037 martial exam was taking place at City No. 2 High School. Reporters crowded around as Principal faced a wave of online skepticism. Many people suspected something suspicious had occurred and demanded an explanation from him. Principal remained calm and unruffled. He explained that this entire exam had been recorded and uploaded to the school's official website where anyone could review it at their convenience. He assured everyone that the integrity of the martial exam was unquestionable. As the video played, the room erupted in disbelief. Shocked reactions filled the air as viewers questioned how he could pierce a unicorn rhino skull with just a single strike. They whispered in awe, realizing his strength surpassed that of most. Someone pointed out the obvious power, speculating he must be a strength type, while another remembered he was supposed to control lightning. Doubt crept in as they all wondered how such overwhelming force could come from someone with only an E rank, and who had barely awakened his abilities. The principal offered a warm smile, clearly pleased. The video evidence made everything clear. Some impressive score was genuine. He had become the first student from to win the provincial championship. Such an achievement, the principal believed, was worthy of celebration. The staff members carried the prizes onto the stage. There was a cash award provided by the Education Bureau, along with an elite training manual. In addition, the city government offered an equivalent cash bonus and presented a lavish villa as part of the rewards. Standing quietly at the edge of the scene, an observer remained hidden, watching without a word. The female professor appeared, quietly noting that releasing video evidence did not eliminate the possibility of using performance enhancers. She emphasized that the most important task was to verify his true ability rank. The constant burst of camera flashes illuminated the room. The principal bent closer to teacher and quietly inquired about the whereabouts of the event's main guest. The teacher responded that a simple phone call would suffice, explaining that the student was currently practicing at the martial arts hall but was already on the way. Even after the exams had ended, the new champion continued training, setting themselves apart from others in a way that even the principal noticed. He appeared visibly shaken while carrying a tray of tea, offering it to the professors with a polite gesture. Despite having placed the object down, his hands continued to tremble uncontrollably. He silently realized that he was experiencing the aura of genuine, high ranking for the first time. The sheer presence radiating from that aura sent a shiver of fear through anyone nearby. It seemed unlikely that a fight would break out right then and there. Who led recruitment at Shanghai Abilities University, broke the silence first. He remarked that it had been some time since the group had last assembled, then wondered aloud which talented individual they would be competing to recruit on this occasion. A student at Abilities University let out a light laugh and regarded Professor with a knowing look. She believed there was no need for the professor to pretend otherwise. If test results were genuine, then he was clearly destined to join. Wu Yuan, a student at Abilities University, let out a dismissive snort. He questions authority to claim someone first and asserted that was also interested in recruiting him. Observed the situation and realized that dealing with a provincial champion always led to intense clashes. Without warning, the sound of a click echoed as the office door swung open. Entered the room with several long spears secured across his back, offering a polite afternoon greeting to the assembled professors. Without warning, the bustling office grew quiet. His gaze brightened with approval. He admired the sharp determination on display, noting how the person before him seemed completely in sync with their weapon. Even after finishing the test, their discipline had not wavered. Surrounded by three powerful ability users, they stood firm, showing no sign of hesitation. The principal entered the room and began introducing the guests. He identified one as professor who had traveled from Shanghai University, another as professor from, and the last as Professor Wu from. Acted swiftly, addressing without hesitation. He mentioned that everyone had already reviewed SIGZAM footage and noted that fighting skills were outstanding, with technique that stood out even more. He stopped abruptly, his voice growing more intense as he pointed out a concern. There was a single issue. The person's power did not align with the officially recorded E-rank weak current. He waited, clearly expecting an explanation. Just as he had anticipated, mentally reassured himself and smoothly delivered the explanation he had planned. He recounted how, while practicing at home before the exam, a bolt of lightning from a storm had hit him. Since that incident, he had realized that his powers had significantly increased. The recruiters looked at each other, realizing that what they heard matched the signs of an ability mutation. Unexpectedly revealed a metal disc, then remarked that likely had no real understanding of her own mutated power. Fortunately, had come prepared with a portable detector and instructed to approach and channel her ability into the device. Gave a silent nod before releasing his power. Without warning, fierce bolts of electricity raced over the surface of the disc, producing a sizzle so intense that it caused the entire room to shudder. Size narrowed, a tremor in her voice revealing her unease. The intensity before her was overwhelming, so powerful that it made her own heart pound uncontrollably. Simultaneously, the detector let out a sharp beep, signaling the completion of the ability scan. It revealed that an ability had been found, Heaven's Thunder, belonging to Z, along with its rating. The voice suddenly fell silent, and there was no sign of any rating appearing. Fissures began to snake their way over the surface of the disc. The device broke into pieces with a sudden, crisp sound. The principal stood in shock, unable to comprehend what was unfolding before him. In his mind, he wondered what was going on. The recruiters could hardly contain their excitement. They believed the matter was resolved. Witnessing the detector being pushed beyond its limits, they determined his abilities must be of at least S rank. Remained silent, though inwardly he brimmed with excitement. He felt certain that his instincts had proven correct, and believed he had finally made the right choice. Wu Yuan finally reached his limit. The offer became clear. Enrolling at university would earn him a 4 million yuan signing bonus, a complete set of C-grade gear, and unrestricted access to every training technique and battle record throughout his 4 years at the school. Before had a chance to respond, burst into a light-hearted laugh, teasingly questioning if that was truly the best offer he could make. With a captivating smile, she promised Sue that joining university would come with an upfront payment of $6 million. She went on to explain that throughout all 4 years, Sue would receive any weapon, training technique, or battle record she desired, all at no cost, and then asked if this offer sounded appealing. Sue let out a silent sigh, realizing just how significant the offer was. Remained calm, showing no sign of being intimidated by the others' offers. With steady assurance, she explained that at university their strength didn't rely on money or resources. Any techniques or records offered by the competitors could be equaled by the university. Moreover, she promised an additional benefit. Every year they would grant one S-grade cultivation resource. As soon as he spoke those words, and Wu Yuan stood motionless, stunned by disbelief. Unlike the others, Sue felt confused and couldn't grasp the meaning behind it. Took his time to explain that dragon-class beasts were known for their incredible strength and dragon-like forms, which was the reason they were referred to as the dragon race. From the moment they are born, their strength already surpasses that of most other species, placing them at tier 4 or 5. Within the collection of S-grade resources was an extraordinary substance, the heart's blood of an 8th-tier adult dragon beast. Consuming this dragon blood brought about remarkable improvements to the body, granting a physique strong enough to compete with monsters of the dragon class. This level served as the baseline for all S-grade resources. Sighed softly, her expression betraying a hint of envy. She found herself drawn in by the allure, silently admitting that famed prosperity was truly captivating. Wu Yuan muttered his frustrations under his breath, aware that S-grade resources were typically allotted to the most advanced students. The fact that someone was prepared to offer them directly to a first year left him feeling hopeless about any chance of matching that level of privilege. The three recruiters simultaneously shifted their attention to, signaling that the moment had come for him to make his choice among the prestigious universities they represented. Sue, not pausing for even a moment, declared her decision to attend University of Abilities. He had decided a while ago stood out by providing both superior deals and the finest combat instruction. In fact, during the intercollegiate leg, produced nearly 50% of all the champions. After deciding, Sue offered a respectful bow to the remaining pair, expressing gratitude for their kindness. Reached into his storage ring and took out a letter. The letter welcomed, expressing anticipation for his arrival. It stated that while regular enrollment would start on September 1st, as a special recruit was permitted to arrive ahead of schedule, the letter also assured him that his living arrangements would be prepared in advance. As Sue held the letter tightly, she eagerly wondered if she would be allowed early access to the library's cultivation manuals and records of past battles. Jean smiled warmly, assuring them that a private study room in the library would be arranged, guaranteeing a quiet space without any interruptions. Jean then handed over their contact information, instructing them to get in touch right after arriving in. Upon hearing the news, Sue could hardly contain her eagerness and was ready to leave right away. The hours slipped away, and before Sue realized it, he was standing in the bustling train station as an announcement filled the air, informing everyone that the G91 was ready for boarding. Tears shimmered in his aunt's eyes as she realized the child had at last matured. Standing next to her, Uncle Tang Dowling let out a quiet laugh, certain that this journey would allow Ming to reach new heights. His parents began discussing her future, noting that it wouldn't be long before she started applying to colleges. They mentioned that her cousin Jing Ming had already decided to attend University of Abilities and encouraged to consider schools in the same city. Jing Ming's father brought up the idea, though her mother seemed uncertain. His own father supported the suggestion, reasoning that if the two girls studied in together, they would be able to help one another. With her parents both urging her, Tang realized she had no choice but to agree. She nodded in acceptance, assuring her mother and father that she understood. At the same time, had already boarded a train heading toward. As the train sped along the tracks, he calculated that he had 6 hours before reaching his destination, just enough time to go over his cultivation technique. Out of all the prizes he had earned from the exam, the one he valued most was a manual titled the Abyssal Sea Method. Cultivation methods, much like abilities, were divided into different levels: basic, intermediate, advanced, and ultimate. The more advanced the tier, the quicker one's progress would be. The technique he held was classified as an intermediate method. Thanks to his mental strength, which had reached 180, he managed to commit the whole book to memory within only a few hours. The manual explained that a special kind of energy filled the world. By carefully adhering to the guide, he became aware of this energy on his first day. As a result, his system screen displayed a bright, shining plus symbol, signaling that an upgrade was available. Sutton decided to wait before making his move. He understood that moving from awakened to ability user should be done using the best method available. He planned to use the advanced manuals he would have access to in college. He refused to throw away this opportunity on something as ordinary as an intermediate manual. As the hours slipped by, the train eventually arrived in, exited the carriage, and found himself standing in front of the impressive entrance to University of Abilities, completely awestruck. The sheer width of the gate, stretching more than 100 meters, left him wondering just how magnificent the campus beyond must be. At that moment, a car pulled up next to him. The window slid down and appeared, grinning warmly. He greeted and invited him into the car, offering to drive him to complete the admission forms. As they traveled, let out a laugh, clearly proud of the place. She remarked on how remarkable it was that University of Abilities spanned an enormous 40,000 mu, about 26 square kilometers. She pointed out that on average, every student enjoyed more than 2,600 square meters of space. She went on to explain that most people who came to visit couldn't even manage to see the entire campus in a single day. Upon hearing those words, let out a quiet sigh, realizing that witnessing the event firsthand was an entirely different experience. When they arrived at the dormitory section, gave him a card, explaining that it was both his student identification and his access pass for the dormitory. However, as Sue raised his head, he became completely motionless. He wondered if this was really a university dormitory. In his previous life, he had experienced all kinds of student housing, shared rooms with 4 people, single rooms, and even spacious 3-bedroom apartments reserved for doctoral students. However, he had never encountered villas being used as dorms before. This was something completely unfamiliar to him. Jean noticed his confusion and began to clarify that each student was assigned a villa. She mentioned that the quality of the villa depended on one's academic ranking. The better the score, the grander the home. Since he was the top student in the province, his villa was among the best, spanning more than 800 square meters. Jean reassured him he wouldn't be alone, as each villa was divided between 2 students, with one occupying each floor. Sue reflected inwardly that sharing a dorm room with another person wasn't so bad. It was certainly preferable to being alone. Having grown up as an orphan, Sue realized that what he truly longed for was the energetic feeling that came from living alongside others. After stepping inside, informed them that their admission forms had already been completed. He then began to outline a few important details they needed to understand about the place. He raised his hand, displaying 2 fingers to emphasize his points. The initial topic he addressed was the credit system, followed by an explanation of the mentor system. The The story began with an introduction to credits, the most important resource at University of Abilities. Students relied on credits for every necessity, from food and gear to valuable artifacts. Without them, nothing could be obtained. Each credit was worth as much as 10,000 coins, making them extremely valuable within the campus. Explained that credits could be earned through several methods. He mentioned that a specific amount was given each year, determined by a person's rating. Because the newcomer held an S rank, they would instantly be granted 100 credits. After making this announcement, brought his hands together in a clap and called for to appear. A metal orb suddenly zipped through the sky and floated in front of the group. From it came a crisp, robotic announcement stating that the student currently had a balance of 100 credits. Took a moment to clarify that EVA was the artificial intelligence designated for each dormitory. The primary system operated from the university's central computer, and the versions present in the dorms functioned as extensions of that mainframe. Despite being subunits, each possessed an intelligence rating high enough to easily manage everyday tasks. Sue gazed in awe, amazed that even a simple subbody possessed such intelligence. She realized that the AI technology on far surpassed anything she had known in her previous world. Offered a warm smile before continuing his explanation. He pointed out that the school had a mentor system where each student had the chance to select a mentor they looked up to. If the chosen mentor accepted, that person would serve as the student's individual advisor. Sue blinked in surprise, questioning whether he had heard correctly. He wondered how someone like him, just a freshman, could possibly receive personal guidance from a mentor. Gave a determined nod, confirming the truth of the statement. Every present possessed advanced abilities and kept their own unique fighting skills hidden. The methods for training these powers were often shared only after someone officially became an apprentice. He hesitated for a moment, then explained that university employed 4 mentors specializing in the lightning element. Of these instructors, he most strongly recommended Yang, who served as the dean of the Weapon Academy. While he continued, displayed a detailed file within. The information revealed Yang, a 52-year-old who served as the dean of the Weapon Academy and possessed a 7th rank high-tier ability. His powers centered around lightning, specifically the fierce force of blazing thunder. Yang had mastered numerous weapons, including fists, broadswords, spears, and his exceptional skill with the spear had earned him the nickname Thunder Spear. One of his most impressive feats was battling the formidable siege demon Python, an 8th-ranked beast, for 3 days and nights in the wild before finally defeating it alone. 3 additional profiles became visible, 2 belonging to students from the Elemental Academy and another from the Weapon Academy who focused on mastering. Ultimately, it would be up to decide. Glanced at the panel and quietly reflected that the lightning element and spear expertise made Dean Young his strongest candidate for A. He quickly reached the Dane's home. The mentor's living space displayed a level of luxury and size that clearly surpassed anything the students lived in. A voice suddenly echoed from behind, addressing apprentice and catching their attention. The man examined him closely from head to toe, and his expression darkened with disappointment. He seemed surprised that the boy was still only an awakener, and wondered aloud if he was perhaps one of the special recruits. Sue responded with a slight nod, her movement barely noticeable. Across from her, the man stared in astonishment, unable to hide his shock. In previous years, special recruits had always been at least upper 1st rank and sometimes even reached mid-tier. He couldn't fathom how this year they had accepted someone who had only just awakened. Yang introduced himself as a 3rd-year student at the Weapon Academy. In response, politely stated that he was a 1st-year student who had just arrived that day. Tan's eyes grew wide with surprise. He noticed how quickly the newcomer was seeking a mentor, remarking inwardly that most 1st-year students usually waited until after the freshman tournament to begin their search. He continued by describing how the tournament was a long-standing custom at the academy, typically taking place 3 or 4 days following orientation. All the mentors gathered to observe the event, eager to spot new talent. Those who impressed during the competition often found themselves in high demand, with different academies competing for their skills. Occasionally, a mentor would be so impressed that they would choose a new disciple immediately. Despite everything, he believed that even someone with special status would find it nearly impossible to meet the dean right away. Such luck would be as rare as winning the lottery, and he suspected that disappointment was the most likely outcome. Sue dipped her head in a polite nod, expressing her gratitude to Senior Tan for clarifying things. She then wondered aloud if Senior Tan, like herself, had come in search of. Tin approached the door and rapped on it, forcing a strained smile onto his face. Even though he had visited this place for several months, he was always refused entry. The constant rejection left him on the verge of surrender, yet something within him refused to let go of hope. At that moment, the enormous doors slowly swung open with a loud creak. A butler approached them, a pleasant smile on his face. He informed the guests that teacher was expecting them inside and invited them to come along as he led the way. Tan Mingyang stopped in his tracks, stunned by what he saw. It struck him as odd. Whenever he had visited before, the butler greeted him with a frosty attitude. But this time the butler welcomed him warmly, and even Yang himself was waiting inside. Tan Mingyang wondered if this might finally be his lucky day. A short while after, the butler escorted the group into an impressive and spacious living room. Looked up, instantly struck by an intense and formidable presence that seemed to press down on him. He realized that such strength could only belong to Yang, the renowned head of the Weapon Academy, who was famous for his title Thunder Spear and respected as a high-ranking expert of the 7th tier. Yang broke the silence, his tone steady but edged with intensity. He identified, recalling that director had already informed him about this newcomer. Without waiting for a response, Yang instructed to follow, promising to lead him to the training hall. Yang guided up to the second floor, mentioning that he had reviewed the footage from entrance exam. He noted that its abilities in combat were remarkable and that his spear techniques had already reached a high level. Before proceeding any further, the speaker expressed a strong desire to witness the Purple Heaven Divine Thunder, the S-class ability firsthand. Gave a nod of agreement. With his eyes shutting gently, he began to let the thunder inside him flow out at a gradual pace. In the following moment, bolts of electricity burst from his form, sending sharp flashes slicing through the atmosphere. Yang's eyes grew wide with surprise as he realized he was witnessing the legendary Purple Heaven Divine Thunder, a power ranked at the S-class level. He personally handled the powerful A-class Thunder, but understood that no amount of talent could close the distance between A-class and the superior S-class. Observing the boy, he realized that with the right training, the young man's potential could one day exceed his own. Yang considered this carefully, his tone grave as he acknowledged that with such remarkable talent, accepting the other as his disciple would be an easy decision. The character made it clear that they had gained both allies and adversaries over time. They warned that anyone choosing to follow them would inevitably attract attention from both sides, and there was a real possibility that some enemies might target the newcomer as well. Despite these risks, the character wanted to know if the other person truly intended to move forward. Before the elder could finish speaking, suddenly fell to one knee and loudly declared his willingness. Deep inside, he reflected on his admiration for those who had become powerful through enduring countless battles and hardships. He believed that with every enemy his teacher defeated, his teacher's strength only continued to grow. Upon witnessing his steadfast determination, Young couldn't help but laugh out loud. Pleased, he declared that from that moment forward, the newcomer would become his 32nd disciple, and notably, his very first disciple of S-class caliber. With a swift motion of his hand, he summoned 2 manuals into existence. He then introduced the first as the most advanced training technique, known as Extreme Ability Tempering, and presented the second as his own creation, a body refinement combat art called Undying. Felt his heartbeat quicken when he received the items. In his hands was a rare technique designed to fortify the body itself. Unlike common abilities such as lightning dash, this method was truly invaluable. Went on to say that the training method spoke for itself, being one of just 3 elite manuals owned by their school. He emphasized that its true strength was in the undying technique. He had dedicated his entire career to developing it, and both the Thunder Hall and the Iron Bear Pavilion had officially recognized it as S-class. Upon hearing the mention of the S-class combat art, stood motionless, stunned by the revelation. He understood clearly that combat arts, much like special powers, were organized by rank. As the grade increased, the training became more grueling, yet the outcomes grew significantly more powerful. While many 7th-ranked masters would feel accomplished just to produce a B-class technique, Yang had managed to craft an S-class skill. This wasn't an ordinary technique, but one of the most difficult, the body refinement category. His exceptional ability in martial arts was truly astonishing. Yang noticed a look of surprise and responded with a gentle smile. He explained that the Undying Thunder Body technique was designed exclusively for those who could control thunder. The technique was divided into 13 levels, and every time someone moved up a level, their physical form would be renewed. However, Yang pointed out that before anything else needed to reach the realm of a genuine ability user. He instructed the other person to leave, telling them to come back after they had mastered the Extreme Ability Tempering technique. Once they returned, he promised to help them begin building their thunder body himself. Bent low in a respectful bow, his words loud and clear as he expressed his gratitude to his teacher. Excitement welled up inside him with a mentor to show him the way. Everything seemed bent low in a respectful bow, his words loud and clear as he expressed his gratitude to his teacher. Excitement welled up. As slipped from view, anticipation glimmered in Yang's eyes. He reflected on his own progress, realizing he had only managed to advance the thunder and mortal body techniques to the 10th level, with the final 3 stages still beyond his grasp. The speaker realized that, should he fail to reach the 9th rank in this life, the young boy might become the most promising candidate to demonstrate the ultimate mastery of their art. With complete perfection, this discipline could allow the human body to achieve true immortality and invincibility. Shortly afterward, the butler led away from the mansion. At the entrance, noticed Han remaining seated on the steps. Curious about the situation, approached and inquired about what was troubling Senior Tan. Tim exhaled with frustration, his mood soured. He glanced toward the hallway, recalling the figure who had just passed by. Senior, known among the students as a favored disciple of the dean. To earn a place, one needed to overcome Senior even when he held back most of his power and fought at only a fraction of his true ability. For Tim, that challenge felt utterly out of reach, no matter how much time passed. The other person glanced at, assuming he had failed too, and offered to share some advice based on personal experience. however declined politely, explaining that he had already succeeded. Tan felt as if he had been struck by lightning when he heard the news. He couldn't believe it. Was it really true? He had never known the dean to accept a disciple before the freshman tournament. Tan wondered if this newcomer might actually be the principal's child. The person's appearance didn't resemble the one they expected, leaving them confused about this stranger's identity. The setting changed, placing inside his dormitory, where he practiced diligently in the secluded training room located on the upper floor. It was no surprise that this was considered a top-level training technique. The energy present was much greater than anything found in the so-called ultimate guides. He reasoned that, having already understood the technique, it would be pointless to progress slowly and cautiously. Instead, he decided to advance to the next level without hesitation. He brought up his system panel in his mind, silently requesting to allocate more points and increase his rank. Suddenly, powerful waves of energy erupted, whirling chaotically in his vicinity. As the energy invaded him, an intense burning agony tore through his body. Held his body tightly, determination flickering in his eyes as he fought to stay upright, his jaw clenched against the pain. Within seconds, a powerful surge of energy erupted from deep within him, radiating forcefully in all directions. Struggling to catch his breath, he acknowledged his achievement. He had at last surpassed the limits of an awakener and reached the level of a first-rank ability. User. Bracing himself, he reached inward to summon his abilities. Sparks of lightning danced across his fingertips, snapping and glowing with intense energy. Quietly reflected on his progress, realizing why this training method was considered exceptional. He could sense a dramatic increase in his strength. His abilities now felt 4 times greater than before. Thinking back to the fierce, bloodthirsty bear he had previously encountered, he felt confident that he would no longer need a gun to defeat it. His own thunder powers would be enough to take it down. At last, realization dawned on him. It made sense now why all those with abilities longed for manuals of a higher grade. If he had used the abyssal ability training method, his blood and spirit would have risen by just 30 or 40 points. However, this time he had gained almost 100 points in one go. The difference was staggering. He took his time, running the numbers in his head. Moving forward required just 300 points, so he decided it was wiser to keep the remaining points for learning new combat skills. He spotted the book titled Undying and immediately recognized its significance, realizing it surpassed even that of a standard training method. The text described it as an S-class technique, renowned for its incredible strength, but also notorious for consuming massive amounts of energy. He wondered silently how much time and effort would be required before he could completely master its secrets. The following morning, he made his way back to his teacher's residence. Upon learning how quickly things were moving, Yang's expression became tense with surprise. He could hardly believe the rapid pace of events. He declared that he had spent 2 decades teaching at Magic University, witnessing many gifted students over the years. Even the most talented among them needed time before they could become ability users. Yet, in less than a single day after receiving the manual, this student had already made remarkable progress. Ran his hand through his hair in embarrassment, silently admitting that swift progress might be his only strength. However, he was forced to recognize that, unlike others who had mastered the Undying, he remained stalled at the very beginning. Yang went on to clarify that establishing the foundation involved using Thunder Beast blood as a catalyst in strengthening one's bones by channeling their own lightning through them. He emphasized that the ultimate power of the Undying Thunder Body was determined by the quality of the beast blood chosen for the process. He explained that because she had already made progress, he would assist her in building a solid foundation that day. Blood from a high-ranked was extremely uncommon, and he mentioned that he had originally obtained the blood of a tier VII, which he had personally defeated. A subtle smile appeared on his lips as he recalled what had mentioned, that she received an S-class resource each year. Determined to secure something even more valuable, he negotiated with the principal and managed to obtain an SS-class resource for her. He produced a small container filled with deep red blood, belonging to the formidable Thunderstorm Dragon, an 8th-tier beast. When spotted the vial, a surge of emotion constricted his chest and made his voice quiver. He realized just how much his teacher and the principal had sacrificed on his behalf, silently vowing to repay their kindness many times over in the future. Yang gave a warm smile as he patted the other's shoulder, expressing his approval of the determination shown. He signaled that no further words were needed, urging everyone to get started without hesitation. The setting moved to the training room on the 2nd floor, where Yang carefully drizzled blood across Spotty. Enduring the pain was necessary, as Thunderstorm acted like poison for those with low-level abilities. Experiencing this discomfort was to be expected. The narrator explained that the next step involved harnessing intense, genuine thunder to shape the foundation, and how much could be absorbed was solely up to the individual. Yang let out a thunderous roar as he released his formidable strength. Vivid red lightning, fierce and blazing like true thunder, shot forth and struck squarely in the back. Waves of unbearable pain surged through him, searing every inch of his body. Finally lost control, unleashing an angry shout that erupted from deep within him. In the living room, Ming quietly drank his tea. He remarked that it had now been 5 days, and he found it remarkable how resilient their new junior brother had proven to be. Ming offered a faint, rueful smile as he shook his head, finding the situation hard to believe. He recalled that in the past he had only managed to survive for 2 days, and even then it was solely because he had used the blood of a tier VII lower beast. He cast his gaze upward, a sense of admiration coloring his tone. In his mind, junior brother had certainly earned the 8th tier dragon beast blood. With such a powerful S-class lightning skill, he couldn't help but anticipate the day would attain the legendary thunder body that would grant him immortality. Suddenly, a loud and angry roar echoed from above. Ming wasted no time, and hurried up the stairs wondering if his junior brother had managed to establish his foundation. As he pressed his weight against the door and tried to steal a glance inside, a sudden tightness in his chest made his breathing stop. Exuded such an intense and frightening presence that the very atmosphere seemed to quiver around him. Ming trembled as an overwhelming force pressed down on him, reminding him of standing before a fearsome predator. The sensation sent a deep chill through his entire body. Without warning, whipped his head back, and in a heartbeat, he sprang toward Ming with a swift, sudden movement. Yang shouted at, urging him to regain consciousness. Was startled by the loud call, stopping abruptly at the last possible moment. His complexion drained of color as fear took hold of him. He wondered anxiously what had just occurred, questioning why an overwhelming desire to wreak havoc had suddenly surged within him. Yang spoke in a somber tone, explaining that the turmoil clouding the mind was caused by the thunderstorm dragon's blood. He noted that this creature was infamous for its fierce nature, and warned that because of the individual's exceptional absorption and compatibility, the negative effects were even more intense. He offered a calm reassurance, explaining that as long as the other person's emotions remained under control, nothing bad would occur. He added that with increased strength, the side effects would eventually disappear. Upon hearing his teacher's comforting words, tension eased. Relief washed over him as he resolved to never let his feelings control his actions or lead him to make a choice he would always regret. Yang's face lit up with a wide grin as he encouraged the student to stay positive. He pointed out that the forging process had gone perfectly, and the absorption rate had reached an impressive 98%. Reflecting on his past experience with over 20 disciples learning the Undying, he recalled that the best result before had only been 92%. Now, this new achievement had set a remarkable new record. Ming's laughter rang out, his expression warm and sincere as he celebrated his junior brother's accomplishment in building the base for the immortal. He assured him that a promising future awaited on this path. Introducing himself as Ming, a top-ranked Tier 3 ability user, he encouraged his junior to seek his guidance whenever he faced difficulties in cultivation. After being introduced by his teacher, swiftly offered a respectful bow to Ming, addressing him politely as his senior. Unexpectedly, Ming reached for his phone without hesitation, admitting that he hadn't brought any other gifts. Instead, he decided to send some credits electronically as a gesture of welcome. His eyes grew wide as he saw the notification. The gift was for 200 credits, an amount he thought was far too generous. Inside, he felt completely shocked, realizing that this simple greeting present was worth a staggering $2 million. Yang let out a light laugh, brushing off the mention of 200 credits as if it were a trivial amount. He believed that, as an older student, it was his responsibility to look after those who were younger. In his mind, he hoped that one day, when the younger students became seniors themselves, they would carry on the tradition of helping their juniors in the same way. He pointed out that her foundation had already been established, and she had managed to survive 5 days without eating or drinking. He advised her to get some rest for the time being. In the morning, she was to return and practice both fist and gun skills under the guidance of senior brother. The setting changed, revealing that was back in his dormitory. He paused in his tracks, his attention caught by the sight of a person engrossed in a video game on the television. The boy spun around, a wide grin spreading across his face. He seemed to recognize the newcomer as his roommate and greeted them warmly, introducing himself as, gave a nod, silently confirming his identity. When heard the name, excitement sparked in his eyes as he realized who stood before him, the top scorer from province. His eyes widened with astonishment when he realized he had been recognized. Straightened up, a smug look on his face, clearly enjoying his reputation as the resident expert on campus gossip. He often boasted about knowing nearly everything there was to know about this year's incoming students. Although he had never intentionally sought out details about the buzz surrounding survival had been impossible to ignore. The new roommate standing before him was the mysterious top scorer from province. The so-called dark horse everyone had been talking about. With a cheerful laugh, he slung his arm around shoulders, teasingly remarking on the rumors about being from the humble city and awakening his powers during the college entrance exams. Despite what others said, he admitted that stability seemed far more impressive than those of an ordinary E-class. As listened to his new roommate talk non-stop, he realized with some amusement that he had been paired with a real chatterbox. Surprisingly, he found the constant conversation comforting, since he had always disliked feeling alone, both in his past life and now. Memories from his previous life flooded his mind. He recalled spending his childhood in an orphanage, never knowing the warmth of a real family and always feeling out of place. School was manageable for him thanks to the companionship of his friends. His fondest memories came from his college years, when he spent countless nights laughing and playing games with his roommates. Later, he went on to earn both a master's degree and a doctorate. No one would have imagined that, following an evening of heavy drinking at his graduation celebration, he would awaken to find himself in a completely unfamiliar world. Even in this new place, he remained an orphan. However, sharing his space with someone like this gave him hope that he might not have to face loneliness any longer. Continued to boast without pause, proudly mentioning his achievement of ranking within the top 20 in Sichuan province. He described himself as an A-class psychic with a Tier 1 mid-level ability. He noted that he had decided to enroll in the Tactics Academy, firmly believing that his future held the promise of leading a massive army and eradicating every beast from. Interrupted him at last, declaring that he was leaving for the Martial Hall. Hearing the mention of Martial Hall, interest was immediately piqued. He quickly decided to join, admitting that he hadn't visited Magic University's hall before. The pair reached Thunder Hall, a facility overseen by Magic University. And Tao stared in amazement, their eyes growing wide as he drew in a sharp breath, taking in the crowded scene before them. Inside the classroom, a student celebrated their achievement, feeling proud of finally perfecting their C-class technique, Anode Flame. A heavily built man dismissed the claim with a mocking tone, confident that nothing could penetrate his tough, metallic exterior. A massive giant boasted loudly, declaring that everyone around him was worthless. As he showed off his power to grow 3 times his normal size, he threatened to smash everyone against the wall with a single swing. As the group ventured deeper into the building, Butler, the AI, began to describe their surroundings, mentioning that the spacious training hall could accommodate as many as 300 trainees simultaneously. She explained that the whole hall was constructed using C-class alloy blended with memory metal, making it resistant to any harm caused by special powers or combat skills. However, she also mentioned that anyone who wanted more privacy could reserve a separate training room. Looked around with wide-eyed amazement, silently marveling at the commotion. It seemed to him as if everyone was trying to outdo one another in volume, each person raising their voice higher than the one before. He gestured toward a line of pillars, silently wondering about their purpose as he glanced at. Explained that the board in view was called the Power Challenge Board. She went on to clarify that it displayed 5 different lists, each corresponding to a tier of ability users. She noted that anyone who managed to rank among the top 3,000 would receive 50 credits as a reward. His expression brightened with excitement. The task seemed simple enough to him. Feeling confident, he reminded himself that Magic University enrolled just around 4,000 students, so the odds were in his favor. With determination, he decided to go ahead and try. Explained to him that starting was as simple as swiping his student ID on the pillar. She also cautioned that in a full-force challenge, using any abilities or techniques was strictly forbidden. The card made a soft beep as slid it through the reader. The speakers echoed throughout the hall, announcing the arrival of student ID 203,701,256 to the full force, and encouraging the crowd to cheer for him. All attention shifted at once as a participant stepped forward to take on the challenge. Amused whispers rippled through the crowd, speculating that the contender seemed to be a mid-level tier, probably a freshman. Excitement grew, with many anticipating the entertainment that was sure to follow. Beneath the weight of countless staring eyes, even who was usually the most talkative grew anxious. He realized that far too many people were watching him, and he couldn't afford to make a fool of himself in front of them all. Clenching his jaw in determination, he let out a fierce shout and launched his fist forward in a powerful punch. His fist struck the machine with a forceful impact. The measurement displayed a powerful 476 kilograms, a result that impressed everyone. Upon learning this, finally relaxed, feeling the tension ease from his body. He thought to himself that this achievement was quite impressive and felt confident that ranking among the top 3,000 would be easily within reach. The broadcast delivered harsh news, stating that the rank was lower than 100,000. Stared in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. He couldn't believe it. His rank was over 100,000. He remembered that Magic University enrolled only 4,000 students. Clarified in a steady voice that the rankings represented all students throughout the university's century-long history, not merely those enrolled now. Hearing this, stiffened, feeling a wave of embarrassment wash over him. He silently cursed the situation. The reason for the stares became clear. They were all anticipating his downfall. Laughter filled the whole hall as students reacted to the number. Many found it unbelievable, over 100,000. Some joked that even they hadn't been so clueless as freshmen. Others pointed at the embarrassed newcomer, whose face had turned bright red, and agreed that he was clearly new to all of this. Noticing the discomfort on his friend's face, offered kind words, reassuring him not to feel bad since psychic abilities were his real strength, not physical skills. Managed a weak smile, expressing his gratitude for the encouragement. He then shifted the focus, suggesting that being stronger should give it a try instead. As soon as gave a nod of agreement, burst out with excitement, urging him to do his best and reminding everyone that their dormitory's reputation depended on his performance. The announcement echoed once more throughout the room, greeting student ID 203,701,204, and inviting everyone present to applaud and encourage him for the full force challenge. A murmur rippled through the crowd as a new opponent stepped forward. Observers quickly assessed him, noting that he appeared even less impressive than the last. Judging by his stance, he seemed to be at the lower end of Tier 1. Some doubted whether he could even manage a 400-kilogram lift, yet as his name was announced, it struck a chord of recognition among a few onlookers. Jimming gazed at his panel, reflecting on his recent progress. He realized he had reached a new tier, emerged victorious, and dedicated 5 days and nights to solidifying his foundation. The character wondered about the extent of their newfound power, deciding that a single punch would reveal the answer. Extended his arm, pouring all his remaining energy into the motion as determination filled his mind. In a sudden burst of energy, he drove his fist into the machine, striking it with such power that the resulting crash echoed like thunder. Struck the testing pillar with a powerful punch, his fist landing directly against its surface. A robotic announcement reverberated throughout the training hall, stating that the punch force had reached 1,589 kilograms, marking the highest power yet and celebrating a new record being set. The flash to life, displaying the top contenders, in first place with a catch of 1,589, followed by Lu Yang in second with 1,321, and in third with 1,122. Shock rippled through the hall as everyone reacted to the unbelievable event. No one could believe he had shattered the record. The numbers, 4,500 kilos, seemed impossible. Some thought only someone of the first tier could accomplish such a feat. Others imagined that kind of power would crush them instantly. Many questioned if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Even those watching from the sidelines stood in shock at what they witnessed. Whispers spread among the crowd about how only the most exceptional prodigies ever made it to the top 1,000 on that. If someone managed to claim the highest spot, it meant their potential was nearly unimaginable. For more than 10 years, the record set by the first pillar had remained unbroken. Now, everyone realized they were witnessing a moment that would go down in history. His voice rang out, his excitement so intense that he nearly shook. He declared his admiration, vowing to follow his companion faithfully from that moment forward, no matter where life might lead them. Let out a quiet breath, surprised at how smoothly things had gone. He realized the Thunder Tyrant Dragon was a perfect match for him, providing an immediate surge of power. His composed tone sounded from the console, announcing that he had set a new record and earned 400 academic credits, which were now added to his student account. Let out a light laugh, clearly pleased. He wondered aloud if breaking the record again would earn him additional credits. Explained that credits were only awarded the first time someone set a new record in a particular tier, but she encouraged him to attempt higher categories for the chance to earn new rewards. Cast his gaze over the remaining 4 luminous pillars, each one symbolizing the 2nd through 5th tiers. A subtle smile touched his lips as he resolved to shatter those as well. Before he had a chance to respond, several girls quickly gathered around him. They recognized him as a newcomer and eagerly offered to explain how the equipment operated. Some mentioned their club was looking for new members and encouraged him to join, assuring him he would be a great addition. Swiftly seized his arm and urged him toward the single training room. The scene shifted to Ming giving Yang an update. Ming informed him that Senior had just made waves on the school's online forums by smashing the previous record, lifting more than 4,500 kilos and demonstrating incredible physical strength. A faint smile appeared on Yang's face, but his tone remained strict as he remarked that instead of taking a break, Senior was once again drawing attention to himself in the training hall. Ming reflected on his progress, recalling that back when he had reached the first tier upper rank with the Thunder Immortal body at stage 1, his strongest punch could only muster 3,500 kilos of force. In comparison, this younger student's power was in a completely different league. In a different part of the city, a man glared at his phone, anger radiating from him. He cursed it under his breath upon realizing that was now in Magic City too. He had lost a provincial championship and because of that person, and his reputation had been ruined making him the subject of ridicule. Now he was determined to reclaim everything that had been taken from him. Inside the training room stood with a composed grin on his face. He believed that thanks to his powerful mortal body, he could endure 5 days and nights without eating or sleeping and still remain unaffected. The newly strengthened body granted skin that was hotter than E-grade alloy, making it nearly impossible for regular weapons to cause harm, just as one would anticipate for mastering an S-class body refinement technique. At that moment, rushed in, breathless, announcing that the campus forum was buzzing with activity about him, and that many students were now eager to challenge him to fights. Let out a soft laugh, noting to himself how strong the sense of rivalry was at Magic University. The character showed clear signs of being healthy and unharmed. Tightened his fists, determined to defend against those troublemakers on his behalf. However, dismissed the offer with a quick gesture, insisting it wasn't necessary. He explained he needed to visit the Combat Archive Library and told to return to the dormitory instead. A short while later, reached the entrance of the library. From the exterior, he sensed an unusual presence. The stories circulating were accurate. The whole building was shielded by a spatial barrier crafted by the vice principal, known for her space-manipulating abilities. Not even a warlord of the 9th tier would be able to break through this defense. He quietly expressed his admiration while sliding his student card through the reader. He passed through the glimmering veil and crossed into the space beyond. 3 women dressed as attendants approached him with cheerful expressions. They acknowledged as an S-class student and warmly offered their assistance in the combat archive library. His eyes widened slightly as he processed the unexpected news. The group clarified that his S-class clearance allowed him to view every combat record stored in the archive. They added that the system had immediately alerted them as soon as his identification was recognized. Everyone understood the significance of being labeled S-class. It signified boundless possibilities and hinted at a destiny as a level. Clearly, this was the kind of person worth forming a connection with. Expressed his interest in reviewing records of battles that featured lightning-type abilities, then asked which floor he should go to. The archives containing information below B-class were located on the 2nd and 3rd floors, while the more advanced records, classified as B and above, could be found on the 4th floor. Access to these sections was granted directly through the use of a card. The guide motioned for her to follow, offering to lead her along the way. She expressed her gratitude with a polite nod, acknowledging his assistance. On the 4th floor's announcement echoed over the intercom, informing everyone that after they picked out the battle manuals they wanted, the original copies would be sent to them. She emphasized that any materials ranked B-class or above needed to be treated very carefully, since they could not be replaced. Gave a slight nod, silently requesting to see every battle record involving lightning abilities at B-class level or higher. In a flash, a multitude of combat manuals materialized right in front of him. Heaven Thunder Prison Shadow stood as an SSS-ranked ability, harnessing the force of lightning to generate a massive thunderstorm that could stretch as far as 80 kilometers. Only lightning users of B-tier and at least tier 5 were permitted to wield such power. Meanwhile, Wrath of the Thunder God held an SS rank, unleashing thunder that resembled divine retribution, devastating everything in its path. His formidable skill was limited to B-tier lightning users who had reached at least tier 4. Stood frozen in disbelief. The archive contained techniques ranked as high as SS, and even those considered SSS rank. The Academy's collection truly deserved its legendary reputation. He wondered if he was actually allowed to access such valuable knowledge without any cost. He let out a sigh, his lips curling into a crooked smile. It was unfortunate that the advanced techniques were still out of his reach as they demanded much greater mastery. For now, he could only focus on training the A-rank skills. With choices for attacking, defending, moving, supporting, and strengthening his body, the options felt overwhelming. Thankfully, his teacher had already narrowed them down to a manageable list. Recalling the list Yang had given him, a sense of relief washed over him, knowing it would spare him from many difficulties. He took his advice to heart and chose 4 different techniques. The lightning spear, an ability of considerable rank, concentrated the power of thunder into the form of a spear before sending it flying toward distant targets. The chain lightning lance, classified as an A-rank ability, channels electricity into a spear. As the weapon pierces several critical areas, one after another, the chain lightning lance, classified as an A-rank ability, channels electricity into a spear. B, a specialized ability, unleashed a surge of electricity that propelled its user swiftly toward a selected direction. A powerful lightning domain began to take shape, its crackling energy weaving together to create a prison of thunder that ensnared the foe inside. Observed the 4 techniques and a smile spread across his face. He recognized that the spear provided him with excellent reach and defense, while the lance granted him overwhelming strength. Thunder Flash offered swift movement, and Lightning Domain gave him command over the battlefield. With the Thunder Immortal body enhancing all these abilities, he realized he had become nearly invincible. Steady Tone announced that she had identified A-rank techniques as the selected ones. She estimated that it would take about half a year to achieve beginner proficiency in each. Also advised mixing these with skills of a lower rank to improve efficiency. However, dismissed the suggestion with an easy reply, feeling that the current plan was sufficient. A short time later, a youthful staff member walked over, carrying 4 thick books. The attendant handed them to Sue, explaining that these were the manuals intended for the student. His gaze settled on the stack of books lying atop the desk, his heart churning with a mix of awe and disbelief. He understood that even manuals ranked C or B commanded prices in the millions, with the rank manuals considered nearly beyond value. The thought of acquiring 4 of them at the same time struck him as an act of sheer luxury. When he unlocked one, a powerful sense of purpose and electrifying energy rushed through his body. It became clear to him why mastering A-rank techniques required access to the authentic versions. Mere imitations could never capture the same level of intensity. As he reached the end of his reading, he realized that dusk had already settled in without him noticing how quickly time had passed. He let out a quiet breath and quietly requested the enhancement for Deep Blue. A gentle chime echoed as 200 energy points vanished, marking the achievement of beginner level in Lightning Spear. The system awarded 200 points, indicating that the Chain Lightning land skill had reached the beginner level. Earned 200 points and successfully reached the beginner level. A total of 200 points had been earned, marking the successful attainment of the beginner level in the Lightning domain. After completing his tasks, checked his status screen, a subtle smile crossing his face. The foundation for his Tier 1 base was now firmly established. His vitality had climbed to 39.1 and his spirit strength measured 289. His mastery over lightning had reached the rare S-grade labeled Divine Thunder of. Every one of his 4 airing techniques had advanced to the initial stage. The Thunder Immortal Body technique was holding steady at its first level. With 1,434 energy points left, quietly acknowledged his progress, convinced that the true journey was just beginning. A playful smile appeared on his face as he considered the impressive array of combat arts he now possessed, and he found himself imagining who might be the first to experience their strength. When he made his way back to the dormitory, darkness had already settled over the campus. As soon as entered the room, he hurried over to Bro Ming. He informed him that had just sent out an announcement about the freshman assembly, which would begin at 9 o'clock the next morning on Field 1. Also mentioned that a new group chat had been created for first-year students and suggested that Bro Ming join it. After joining the group, casually mentioned to the others that he had selected A-rank combat techniques. Just stood motionless, caught off guard. Typically by their second or third year, students found it hard to master even one A-rank skill, yet Bro Ming, true to his reputation, consistently expectations. The thought occurred that having access to A-rank techniques must require a certain level of clearance. Responded in a composed manner, clarifying that his clearance was not just at the A level, but at the S level. Was so surprised that he almost rose from his seat. He realized that at this school there was a rank higher than A. He wondered how anyone could have access to that level. The rumors about the other person being just E rank must be false, he concluded. In reality, this person belonged to the rare and elite S class. Let out a quiet laugh, amused by the situation. It seemed that the person known for always having the answers on campus had just discovered something unfamiliar. A sudden understanding washed over too as he pieced together the connection between permissions and ability ratings. Although he had suspected this link before, having it openly stated rendered him momentarily mute. Among all the provincial champions, not a single one possessed a rank above A. He felt a surge of pride, believing that signing up ahead of everyone else had been his choice yet. Now he considered himself a true original fan. Not long afterwards, stepped into the training hall on the second floor, carrying a practice rifle provided by the academy. As he reflected on his situation, he realized that while his skills were firmly established, he required superior gear. His previous weapon, a worn-out F-rank obsidian spear, was no longer usable. Even if it had survived, it wouldn't be able to match the power he now possessed. He called over and logged into the academy's virtual armory, browsing through the sections for guns and long weapons. The screen displayed a vibrant array of images. He quietly noted the abundance of F-rank, E-rank, and D-rank options. It was possible to adjust both the size and weight of each item. However, he realized that as the grade improved, so did the weight and cost. After some thought, he chose an E-rank version weighing 210 kilograms and decided to include coordinating armor and boots. A short time passed before his automated voice echoed from the speakers, announcing that the purchase had gone through. She listed off the items: an E-rank spear, matching armor, and sturdy boots. The entire order came to 237 credits, leaving 382.6 credits in the account, then confirmed that the items would arrive the next morning. Paused, surprised at how quickly his credits had disappeared. Almost half of what he had saved was gone in an instant. He reached out and tapped the training spear resting at his side, silently acknowledging that it would be his only companion for the evening. Determined, he resolved to make the most of the situation by focusing on mastering the 4 A-rank techniques through dedicated practice. The days passed quickly, and before anyone realized it, the morning of the freshman assembly arrived. As soon as he stepped onto the field, the crowd erupted with excited whispers and murmurs. Everyone's attention shifted to the studio responsible for shattering the academy's authority. The previous day's record belies belonged to him, making him not only the leading scorer in but also across all the surrounding provinces. The observer was taken aback by the man's incredible strength, having expected only a bulky powerhouse, but was left genuinely impressed. He turned out to be surprisingly handsome. Without warning, a booming voice pierced the commotion, declaring a challenge from Lei Zhou to. Everyone in the room shifted their gaze to the person who had just spoken. Whispers broke out as they recognized the student who had achieved the second highest score in the entrance exams, earning more than 9,300 points. Rumors about his wealthy background spread quickly. His parents were both Tier 4. Despite all this, his accomplishment had faded from memory. Overshadowed by the first-place winner, it seemed clear that he was eager to stand out. Kept a frosty look on his face, showing no interest in what was being offered. Li Ho remained unfazed as he moved closer, a smirk playing on his lips. He warned against making a hasty refusal, reminding the other person about their aunt's involvement in the trade of rare herbs and flowers. He remarked in a casual tone that, by coincidence, his family happened to be her biggest customer. She was still responsible for delivering a large order to them. He implied that if she failed to pay soon, things might turn unpleasant for her. His gaze turned cold in an instant, and his words rumbled with the intensity of a storm as he questioned whether he was being threatened. Recoiled from the intensity in the other man's voice, his complexion draining of color as he staggered backward. Joe felt an overwhelming force pressing down on him as if he were face to face with a deadly predator. Anxiety flickered through his mind while he struggled to maintain a calm expression. He reminded himself that this wasn't an attack, only a subtle warning dressed as kindness. His eyes were cold and unfeeling as he demanded the details. Lei Zhou, nervous and hesitant, managed to set the challenge for noon 7 days later at the third arena. Agreed without emotion, promising to attend and warning Lei Zhou not to regret his decision. The audience burst into excitement as the top two teams prepared to face off. Anticipation filled the air, promising an unforgettable showdown. Eager not to miss a moment, one fan decided to arrive early and secure a spot right at the front. A few moments passed before a commanding voice rang out from the stage, filling the stadium with its presence as it greeted everyone and announced the opening of the Magic City Academy of. The freshman assembly did not serve as the academy's formal opening event. Instead, it was organized mainly to clarify details about how the academy's credit system worked, how mentorships would be assigned, and other practical matters. However, before anything else, the assembly began by highlighting the academy's combat ranking board as the most crucial subject. The instructor informed the group that they would each operate a device known as the virtual. Within this simulated environment, everyone would face a series of stages, and their final ranking would depend on how many levels they managed to complete. The instructor urged them to give their best effort, promising significant rewards for those who achieved top positions. Following that, a number of professors rotated through the room, each outlining how classes would be organized, detailing the mentorship programs, and describing the rules for combat training. More than an hour passed before the assembly came to an end. Suppressed a yawn and felt relief that the meeting was finally finished. Out of everything discussed, this seemed to be the only topic that caught his attention. He considered trying it out another time, but for now he decided to concentrate on training with senior brother Ming and his mentor. Over the next several days, practiced diligently while his mentor watched over him and offered guidance. His power continued to increase, and he learned to master the energy of thunder with greater precision. A week slipped by almost unnoticed. Following their training match, Ming gazed at him, astonished. He could hardly believe his junior had already reached mid-tier 1 in such a short span of time. Gave a humble response, attributing his success to mere chance. However, inside he was fully aware of the real reason. He had intentionally delayed for several days before using 386 ability points to level up. Had he acted earlier, Ming would likely have been overwhelmed by surprise. Ming suddenly remembered and brought up the duel that was set to take place at noon that day. A wide grin spread across his face as he gave Shoulder a reassuring pat. He suggested that they take a brief moment to honor his upcoming challenger. Expressing his curiosity, he mentioned his intention to watch the match as well, eager to witness just how formidable could be when giving his all. The arena came into view, revealing Lei standing there in anticipation. Excitement filled the stands as students exchanged hushed conversations. With only a month left until the freshman tournament, many saw this as an ideal opportunity to see what was in store. Some students had researched his achievements, noting that his provincial victory wasn't particularly impressive since he had only outperformed competitors at a less challenging testing site. Confidence ran high among supporters, who believed their team would win easily. However, others pointed out that had recently set a new Academy punch force record, suggesting he might be a stronger contender than expected. Skeptics dismissed the record, arguing that among true strength came from unique abilities rather than physical power. The quiet whispers in the room came to an immediate halt as a sudden voice cut through the air announcing survival. Ming let out a sigh as he observed walking away. He couldn't help but think that good looks were powerful enough to attract attention on their own. Ming predicted that after achieved a few victories, a significant number of the older girls at school would be drawn to him. Lei Zhou looked in the same direction as, quickly picking up on the subtle increase in his energy. Realizing that had also grown stronger, Lei Zhou felt relieved that he had made sure to come ready for anything. A sly smile played on his lips as he challenged, suggesting that simply competing for the win lacked excitement. He proposed raising the stakes by betting all their credits. Unfazed, responded evenly, agreeing to the wager and revealing he had 370 credits. Lei Zhou lifted his eyebrows in surprise at the amount. He offered to cover the remaining balance using currency. To ensure fairness, he suggested that all the funds be transferred to teacher Zhou. The referee for the match turned out to be none other than Joey, a teacher known for being a mid-level with a talent for healing. Jin Min shot a quick look in her direction, silently agreeing conflicts between often turned dangerous. It was clear why the school always had a healer ready. Gave an approving nod, signaling there was nothing to worry about as his credits appeared in her account right away. A hush of amazement rippled through the audience as they realized that more than 370,000 was at stake, leaving everyone stunned by the boldness of the wager. Joe reviewed the financial records before speaking up. She announced that the funds were, and the fighters were prepared. She reminded everyone that as soon as someone gives up or is knocked out, no additional strikes are permitted, and asked if everyone understood the rules. Walked confidently up to the stage, gripping his spear tightly in his hand. Lei Zhou's gaze burned with anger as he glared at, determined to reclaim the recognition that had been taken from him. Fire burst from his body, causing the surrounding air to shimmer with intense heat. Observers reacted with fear, one person recoiling at the frightening sight. The crowd recognized the display as a powerful fire ability, noting how overwhelming the heat had become. Zhou sprang upward into the air, his body soaring toward the sky. As he unleashed a powerful attack, flames erupted from his sword, pouring downward like a fiery waterfall. The blow sliced through the atmosphere and halted just short of his chest, leaving barely any space between the attack and his target. Remained perfectly still, showing no sign of fear, and calmly lifted his spear in response. A sharp metallic sound rang out as the blazing sword stopped short in front of. The crowd let out startled cries, amazed by what they saw. Had managed to defend against the attack. He hadn't even used any special techniques. The audience couldn't believe that a simple move was enough to deflect such a powerful strike. Shook with fear, his expression contorted by shock as he struggled to accept what he was seeing, convinced that it simply could not be true. His voice sounded cold as he dismissed any doubts, insisting that nothing was out of reach. He simply believed the other person lacked the strength to achieve it. With a swift motion, he snapped his wrist and sent the spear's shaft arcing through the air. A heavy strike crashed against his chest, forcing him to spit out blood. He was hurled backward through the air. The impact sent him slamming forcefully against the wall that enclosed the arena. The audience fell quiet for a moment before bursting into applause. Many in the crowd were surprised that the match had ended so quickly, as only 2 strikes had been exchanged. Some had believed Lei Zhou to be the stronger fighter, but now that seemed laughable. The powerful attack, fierce enough to overwhelm most students, had been easily deflected. Clearly, Ming's abilities were far beyond those of his peers. Ming let out a weary sigh and slowly shook his head, thinking how unfair the match seemed. In his mind, he noted that his junior was barely using a fraction of his true power, not even reaching 10% of his full strength. Standing on the stage, teacher lifted her hand and announced the victor of the match. His voice suddenly broke the quiet, his words trembling in the air, struggling to his feet with blood trickling down from his mouth. He made it clear through his determination that he had not given in, and the battle was far from finished. He slipped his hand into his jacket pocket and drew out a pill the color of deep red. Joe's complexion turned pale as he realized what had just happened. He recognized the use of a pill and was shocked at the reckless decision. In his mind, he questioned the other's sanity, unable to believe that someone would go so far for a simple sparring session instead of a real fight to the death. The crowd reacted with shock and disbelief. They couldn't believe he was really taking a blood-burst pill. Everyone knew those pills could make someone much stronger, but the cost to the body was severe. Recovery would take weeks, leaving him weakened. With the freshman tournament scheduled for next month, it seemed like he was sacrificing his future. His body shook with uncertainty, yet determination burned in his gaze. He resolved to accept whatever consequences came his way, prepared to risk everything regardless of the outcome. The audience erupted in loud boos, expressing their disapproval. Many spectators questioned whether using pills in that manner was a form of cheating, while others insisted it was clearly a violation of the rules. Joe lifted her hand, signaling everyone to quiet down. She reminded the group that the upcoming match was not formal, so strict rules would not be enforced. She compared it to an open book test, explaining that participants could use any weapons, armor, or potions they wished. If also had pills, he was permitted to use those as well. As she continued speaking, a burst of intense, blazing energy suddenly exploded outward from Joe's body. Joe's expression darkened with concern as he realized the pill was a high-grade pill. He noted that it had immediately boosted the opponent to a lower rank in Tier 2, making the situation potentially hazardous. As her gaze shifted too, she became motionless, caught off guard by his unwavering calm. Rather than showing any sign of wavering, his determination only seemed to intensify. His steady presence was remarkable, revealing the confidence of someone destined for greatness. His lips curled into a smirk as he watched from inside. At last he thought this wouldn't be a lopsided battle between someone grown and someone young. Lightning split the ground under his feet as he sprang ahead, a brilliant burst of thunder illuminating the scene. Barely managed to lift his sword, astonished by the speed before him. Sparks burst into the air when metal clashed violently with a force like thunder. The force of the explosion hurled Lei off his feet, sending him sprawling backward as his sword tumbled from his hand. He gazed at his own shaking right hand in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he was facing. The realization hit him. He had reached Tier 2, yet even with extra power, he still couldn't rival the other's overwhelming strength. Confusion and fear mingled as he wondered what sort of creature possessed such power. Knowing he was outmatched, he resolved to stay away and keep his distance. He extended his hand, sending a rapid stream of flames surging ahead. A barrage of fiery projectiles tore through the air above the stage, their heat intense and their speed blinding. Reacted swiftly, his spear slicing through the flames and breaking them into harmless sparks. With a frosty demeanor, he dismissed the attack, considering it unimpressive and weak. A wave of panic flashed across Lei Zhou's eyes as he realized the situation. He silently cursed, frustrated that lightning was meant to be swift, not unbeatable. Accepting that brute force wouldn't win this fight, Lei Zhou resolved to buy time instead. He reasoned that once the thunder's energy ran out, his opponent would be finished. Before the idea could fully form in his mind, raised his left hand. A bolt of lightning surged ahead, splitting the air with a deafening crack. The force of the attack resembled a spear forged from pure electricity. Narrowly avoided the attack, but the force of the blast still tore his clothes to shreds. He couldn't believe it. His opponent could strike from a distance as well. Before he could even process this realization, a surge of energy thundered overhead. As he lifted his gaze, he stopped in his tracks. Above him, a swirling mass of purple lightning began to form in the sky. Confusion and fear filled his mind as he wondered what strange phenomenon was unfolding above. Lifted his arms, summoning the power of Thunder Prison. In a flash, bolts of lightning crashed down to form a cage around Lei Zhou, enclosing him completely. Surprise flickered in his eyes before his expression shifted to determination as a new idea struck him. He crossed his arms with a scowl, reluctantly agreeing as he summoned a barrier of flames. Flames erupted and curled around his body, shaping themselves into a fiery barrier. He resolved that if escape was impossible for him, then entry would be impossible for anyone else. A silent challenge flickered in his eyes, daring his opponent to see who would withstand the heat the longest. Approached with a confident smile, observing the seemingly solid wall of fire, he wondered aloud how resilient the barrier truly was, curious to find out how much force it could withstand. Lightning danced across his spear when he sprang upward with a rapid sparking hiss. A barrage of purple lightning bolts surged through the air, hurtling straight for. Stood motionless, paralyzed as an overwhelming wave of murderous intent poured from the attacks, sending a chill through his veins. They realized that if the attack connected, it would mean their end. He raised his hands above his head and loudly declared his surrender. As he blinked awake, he found the tip of a spear hovering just a few inches from his brow. Rotated his wrist, causing the blade's point to veer off course with a dull sound, ultimately sinking into Lei Zhou's shoulder. The injury cut deeply, yet it was not life-threatening. Zhou announced loudly that had emerged as the winner. The audience burst into cheers as they witnessed a display of pure dominance. In just 5 seconds, he executed 4 advanced moves flawlessly. Each transition flowed seamlessly into the next, leaving everyone amazed at his skill. It was hard for anyone to believe that he was only a freshman. The moves appeared to be at least B rank in quality, while the best skills the observer could manage barely reached C rank. High above in the stands, 4 B rankers watched with disapproval, their voices heavy with frustration as they recognized advanced techniques being used by the unsuspecting students below. At his age, the speaker had devoted 4 long months to perfecting a single technique, Thunder Flash. Watching this younger person surpass that effort as his junior felt unbearable. On stage, gripped his shoulder and gasped for breath, acknowledging his defeat with gratitude for being spared. He admitted his loss, conceding both the credits and money to his opponent, and promised to settle his debt promptly. Zhou informed everyone that his account now held 50 credits and an additional 3.2 million. A smug grin spread across his face. He thought to himself how quickly guest dueling could make someone wealthy. Sprang to his feet with a wide grin, excitedly pointing out Ming's newfound wealth. He suggested they head downtown that evening to enjoy a small celebration together. Gave a small shake of his head, silently refusing the offer because he needed to continue training with his senior later that day. Meanwhile, Ming let out a soft laugh and encouraged him to go, remarking that even thunder required moments of clear skies between storms. Offered a subtle smile and seeing that his senior brother was determined, agreed without protest. And Tao abruptly recognized the person he was fixated on. Disbelief washed over them as they understood. This was Ming, the legendary True Thunder and the Ashen Society's vice president. In that moment, they couldn't help but notice that he appeared even more impressive in person than they had imagined. As they departed, gave an encouraging pat on the shoulder, making it clear that their plans for the evening were decided, would be joining him, and would handle all the arrangements for their entertainment. Gave a quick blink, his mind drifting to thoughts of entertainment. And Tao exchanged sly smiles, both eager for the legendary event known as the Freshman Boys and Girls Door Mixer. A table is lavishly spread with food for a social gathering. Approaches Sue, who is seated at the table. He excitedly tells Sue how popular he has become, explaining that he posted an invitation for a social mixer on the campus forum. Reveals that over 100 people registered, and he had a hard time choosing who to invite. Sue smiles and comments on his friend's dedication, asking who he finally chose. Playfully tells him it's a secret for now, but he will meet them soon. Just then he spots the guests arriving and calls them over. 2 young women approach. One wearing glasses introduces herself as the invited guest. Her companion, a girl with dark hair, introduces herself as her roommate's Song. Proudly introduces them to highlighting their abilities. He explains that Kai has an A-rank beast-type ability, while Song is a high-level first-tier user with an A-rank light element ability, and was also the top scorer in her province. Sue politely introduces himself upon hearing his name. Song's expression shifts to one of surprise. She immediately asks Sue if he would be interested in a sparring match, telling him he can pick the time and place. Her friend calls her a battle maniac for trying to set up a fight right after meeting, reminding her they were there to socialize. Song admits that her main reason for coming was the chance to spar with. Sue steps in to smooth things over, inviting them to sit down. clarifies that the plan is just to have fun, eat, and go shopping together. The group spends the evening at the bustling commercial street. Song looks up at the towering skyscrapers in awe of how magnificent the city is. As they walk, admires the clothes in a window, while Sue notices the wide array of high-end equipment for superpowered individuals, including weapons. He observes a display of blades and elixirs, thinking this commercial center offers a far greater selection of gear than his of. Their outing continues as they enjoy some street food together. Later, they browse a clothing boutique. As the girl's shop offers to hold Song Kyu's shopping bag, and their hands briefly touch as he takes it. Afterwards, Sue watches as the two girls walk ahead, looking at a jewelry display. By the end of the evening, is holding many shopping bags. Surprised they spent several million in just a few hours. Remarks that despite Song's simple style, she is quite a wealthy young woman. When Sue seems curious, leans in to explain that her family background is also incredibly powerful. Just then, cheerfully calls out to them to help carry one final bag, while Song thinks it is probably time to head back. The night ends with, and walking the girls back to their impressive villa. Song tells the boys that they had a lot of fun. Both Sue and wave goodbye as the girls head towards their home. However, before leaving, Song stops and faces Sue with a serious expression. She tells him she was serious earlier and promises that one day she will formally challenge him to a sparring match. Her determined declaration surprises for a moment, but he quickly recovers a confident smile on his face as he accepts her challenge, saying he is looking forward to it. Song seems pleased before turning to go inside. Once inside, Dawn begins to tease her friend. She remarks that she has never seen Song show a pleasant expression to any boy since they started university, with Jing Ming as the only exception. She happily concludes it was a great idea to bring her. Song explains the reason for her usual coldness. She reveals her A-rank light element ability, lets her perceive the inner thoughts of others, so she is constantly exposed to the impure thoughts of the boys around her. However, she says Sue is different. Her ability revealed he only holds a sense of appreciation with no impure intentions. She concludes thoughtfully that he is special. Hearing this, gets a mischievous look, teasingly concluding that Miss Song has developed a crush. Meanwhile, as the boys walk back, sighs with satisfaction, commenting that it's nice to relax once in a while, and Sue quietly agrees. Sue, however, is lost in thought. He reflects on Song and her high-level status, realizing he still has a long way to go. The thought motivates him to work hard and grow even stronger. 15 days later, is meditating in his training room. Sensing he is ready, he decides it is time to level up and commands his system, Deep Blue, to use his points for an upgrade. A violent surge of purple lightning erupts from his body system notifications, confirm he is undergoing a dual advancement from a mid-level to a high-level first-tier user, while also leveling up his Thunder Indestructible body technique to its second level. As the energy subsides, Sue reflects on his progress. He notes the rank up has significantly increased his power, and that the second level of his body tempering technique is focused on strengthening his bones and muscles. He then consults the training manual, which reveals that upon reaching the third level, he will unlock a special ability called the Thunder Extreme State, which provides a temporary but immense boost to power and speed. He pulls up his system panel to check his new status. While pleased, he is disappointed to see he only has 62 ability points left, not enough to reach the next level. He realizes it is time to ask his master for leave to go to the wilderness, hunt beasts, and get more ability points. Later, when visits his master's residence, Dean Yang is shocked by his rapid advancement, asking if he has broken through again. Calmly confirms his progress from the previous night, also mentioning his progress. His body tempering technique has reached the second level. The dean is inwardly amazed, thinking his student speaks of difficult breakthroughs as if they were simple. He concludes that with an S-rank ability and such hard training, there is nothing cannot achieve. His senior disciple Ming remarks that his junior brother is a monster, recalling it took him half a year to make the same advancement. Dean tells Sue that leveling up is important, but he must not neglect combat training. To test his new strength, the dean suggests a sparring match against his senior Ming, which Sue eagerly accepts. In the training room, Ming says he will suppress his own power to that of a low-level second-tier user, instructing to fight with full strength. After a countdown, the match begins. Both warriors leap forward, and their spears meet in the center with a powerful clash, erupting in a brilliant explosion of purple and green energy. The force of their clash leaves Ming surprised. He thinks to himself that his junior brother's power is incredibly strong, almost on par with his own, even with his power suppressed. Covered in purple lightning, feels a thrill of excitement. He realizes that for the first time since getting his system, he is facing an opponent of equal strength. Deciding to press his advantage, concentrates a sphere of lightning in his hand and unleashes his Thunder Prison technique. The massive orb of electricity flies across the room, forcing Ming to defend himself. Before his senior can recover, leaps and follows up with another attack, throwing a volley of lightning spears in a move like his chain thunder gun technique. Ming recognizes the combination of skills. With a smirk, he notes that this is the same combination that defeated Lei Zhou, but declares that he is no mere freshman. He gathers his own power and unleashes a devastating counterattack, a massive torrent of teal-colored lightning called Jade Pivot True Thunder. 20 minutes later, the intense battle is over. An exhausted Su leans on his spear for support. He concedes the match, admitting that his divine thunder energy is depleted and that he has lost. Ming, however, reassures him. He explains that did not lose because of skill, but was simply at a disadvantage due to lower energy reserves. Their master Dean Yang approaches them, praising the fight as an exciting spectacle. He admits performance far exceeded his expectations. He had thought Ming would win easily, but instead they were so evenly matched the outcome was decided by a battle of attrition. Ming then asks his junior brother if he is aware of the true level his combat power reached during their fight. When Su looks back puzzled, Ming makes a stunning declaration. His power is now unrivaled in the second tier. The weight of this new assessment is a huge part of the world. Leaves Su looking thoughtful and determined. After the intense sparring session, Dean Yang announces that the training is over and tells everyone to rest. The butler uncle brings over a tray of spirit fruits, explaining they are perfect for recovering after training. Seizing the moment, approaches his master with a request. He reveals his intention. He is preparing to leave the university to go on a trip to the wilderness. The dean is taken aback and asks how long he plans to be gone. Su explains he intends to stay for over a month, planning to return just before the freshman competition. The long duration of the trip clearly worries his master. With a stern expression, the dean warns him that the wilderness is far more dangerous than the exam grounds. He explains there is no army protection and beasts roam without predictable patterns, making it easy to encounter a high-level creature. He emphasizes the dangers of staying for over a month are immense. However, seeing his disciple's determination, the dean relents. He decides that if Su is set on going, he will not stop him. He places a firm hand on his student's shoulder, giving him one piece of advice. If a situation ever looks bad, he must flee without hesitation. The dean explains that the path to becoming powerful is filled with life and death crises, and since his disciple is so ambitious, he will not stand in his way. Su bows his head in gratitude, thanking his master for his understanding. The dean then asks which wilderness area he plans to visit. As takes a spirit fruit from Ming, he replies that he is heading to the wilderness near Yuan City. This news seems to relieve the dean, who notes the area is next to Magic Capital, and the beasts there only go up to tier 4 or 5, making it a relatively safer choice. He tells that he will have Ming share some valuable experience with him later, and offer accept. As a final gesture of support, the dean explains that since he cannot offer much help while he is away, he will at least provide him with a suitable weapon. A glowing ring on his finger begins to shine with a bright teal light, and he takes Su's hand, preparing to give him his gift. Back in his dorm room, Su sits on his bed, his new spear and a packed bag beside him. He asks the AI to open the university's mission system. As holographic screens appear, he recalls the advice his senior disciple Ming gave him. Before leaving for the wilderness, it is a good idea to accept some missions to earn extra credits. He looks through the list, noting the variety of tasks available, such as collecting beast materials, gathering rare herbs, and capturing fugitives. The rewards vary by difficulty, with C and D rank missions offering modest credits, while S and A rank missions offer much more. Su observes that all the high reward missions involve combat, remarking to himself that this must be the training model of university, pushing its students into dangerous situations to grow stronger. He remembers a saying that the most outstanding students are not found on campus, but out in the world. With this in mind, he selects 1 A rank and 3 B rank missions for his trip. With his preparations complete, puts on his new combat attire, slings his backpack over his shoulder, and prepares to leave. As wishes him good luck, he thinks to himself that there is no time to waste and he must set out immediately. His journey takes him to the Yuan City supply base, a bustling town in a mountainous region that serves as a forward base for those venturing into the wilderness. The streets are filled with adventurers trying to recruit members for their beast hunting teams. Su arrives, taking in the lively atmosphere with satisfaction, thinking that he has finally made it. He walks through the streets and enters a grand building that serves as a registration hall for adventurers. The hall is filled with other armed individuals. A woman in an elegant red dress who works as a receptionist greets him warmly and asks how she can assist him. States his purpose, explaining he wants to register as an adventurer. He holds up his identification, knowing that to enter the wilderness, one must first register for a nationally recognized adventurer identity. The receptionist takes Su's university ID and is impressed that he is a student from Superpower University. She remarks that it is rare to see a first-tier user like him venturing into the wilderness so soon. She informs him it will take a little while to process his registration and suggests he rest in the hall while he waits. As waits, he walks through the hall, observing the other adventurers. Suddenly a commotion erupts near the entrance. A group of men exclaim in excitement as a newcomer arrives. They recognize her as the goddess, commenting on her beauty and powerful aura, noting that such a presence is expected from a student of university. The center of attention is a stylish woman with long white hair and sunglasses who walks through the hall with confidence, followed by two large bodyguards and a cameraman. She is a second-year student from Superpower University. The onlookers gossip, speculating she must be there to film new material for her online videos. They praise her content and marvel at her popularity, with one man stating she has at least 10 million fans. Another corrects him, claiming she has over 15 million followers, and passionately declares he would trade 10 years of his life to be her boyfriend. From a distance, observes the scene. He recognizes she is a fellow student and internally notes her beauty is on par with Song's. His observation is interrupted when the receptionist calls him over. She hands him his new adventure card and a satellite smartwatch, explaining the watch has a map of the wilderness detailing beast activity and danger levels. Sue thanks her. As he turns to leave, a shady-looking man stops him. The man guesses this his first trip into the wilderness, and warns him it is dangerous to go unprepared, offering to sell him some essential elixirs. Intrigued, Sue asks about the price. The man eagerly opens his coat to reveal hidden pills, offering first-grade healing elixirs for $20,000 and antidote elixirs for $15,000. He also mentions he has more potent second-grade versions, though they are more expensive. Sue casually remarks that the prices don't seem that high. The merchant laughs, pleased, and boasts that he is well known for selling cheap and effective elixirs. However, Sue's expression turns sharp. He internally notes something is wrong. He knows a standard first-grade elixir should cost at least $30,000 or $40,000. The man's low prices can only mean one thing. He is a scammer targeting inexperienced newcomers. Instead of being intimidated, Sue calmly asks how many elixirs the man wants, then immediately calls out his scam, asking how many other newcomers he has cheated. The merchant, realizing he's caught, drops his friendly act. He aggressively gets in Sue's face, asking if he was toying with him from the start. Sue remains unfazed, simply asking what he thinks. The merchant's face twists into a menacing grin. He declares that Sue is the first person to dare provoke him within the supply base. However, before things can escalate, a young woman with short, dark hair intervenes, shouting at the merchant. She calls him by his name and accuses him of scamming new adventurers again. The woman walks towards them, annoyed, mutters that Sue is lucky this time. Before leaving, he leans in and delivers a sinister threat, warning Sue not to leave the supply base for the next few days or he will regret it. As stalks away, the other adventurers gossip. They comment that the newcomer is in trouble for being targeted by and that he provoked the wrong person. One adventurer notes that is rumored to be a mid-level second-tier user, making him too powerful for a high-level first-tier user like Sue. The woman who intervened approaches Sue and warns him that is vengeful, advising him to stay inside the base. Sue thanks her, but asks why a known scammer isn't dealt with by the authorities. She explains has powerful connections, which is why no one interferes. She advises Sue to buy his supplies from official channels and gives him one last warning not to leave. As she walks away, Sue watches her go, thinking she is a kind-hearted person. Putting the encounter out of his mind, refocuses. He decides to first purchase all the supplies he will need for the month, making a mental list of healing elixirs, antidote elixirs, and other necessities. Having finished his business, approaches an official counter to purchase his supplies. After stowing the items in his backpack, he leaves the adventurer's hall, now fully equipped and ready for the wilderness. However, as soon as he steps outside, his path is blocked by his cronies. The merchant looks furious, mockingly commenting on how Sue is foolish and defiant for daring to leave after being warned not to. He angrily asks if this is a sign of disrespect. Unfazed, calmly asks what he wants. Enraged by his calm demeanor, his face twists into a sneer. He declares that since Sue has disrespected him, he will break both of his legs and make sure he spends the rest of his life in a wheelchair, claiming it is the only way to appease his anger. Nearby, the kind adventurer woman who had warned him earlier sees the confrontation. She expresses frustration that he didn't listen to her and declares she must go help. However, her companion holds her back, suggesting it might be better to let him learn a lesson. Back in the confrontation, prepares to make good on his threat. Dark energy swirls around his arm as he activates his ability. He boasts about his C-rank metallic skin superpower, claiming that when combined with his D-rank combat suit, won't even be able to scratch him. He then gives his ultimatum. Unless pays him 1 million and kneels an apology, he will be crippled. Sue's reaction is instant. A faint crackle of purple lightning comes from his body as he utters a single contemptuous word, shameless. The sudden surge of his energy startles, his eyes widening in shock. Before or his cronies can react, disappears in a flash of purple lightning, reappearing behind the merchant and striking him down with a single devastating blow. The force of single lightning-fast attack sends flying backward, his body battered and bloody. Is slammed with such force that he crashes through a nearby stone wall, shattering it. The onlookers, especially the kind adventurer woman and her companions, are left utterly speechless by the sudden and brutal display of power. Su stands calmly in the now devastated courtyard, unfazed by the chaos he caused as the crowd parts around him. The onlookers are in shock, murmuring about the instant and terrifying defeat of. One person notes they didn't even see how Su attacked, while another remarks they were initially worried for the newcomer, never expecting him to be so strong. The consensus is clear: picked a fight with the wrong person. The kind adventurer woman and her friend are also trying to process what they just saw. The woman admits she couldn't follow his movements either. Her companion grimly assesses the damage. Guessing that's legs and pelvis must have been completely shattered. She concludes that even if he survives, he will be a cripple. The kind woman remarks that Su is not only incredibly strong but also ruthless, truly a student from the prestigious superpower university, when her companion asks how she knows. She explains she recognized his combat suit as exclusive gear from the university. Impressed by his power, the kind woman whose friend calls her suggests they should try to recruit him into their team, noting they are short one attacker. Her teammate immediately protests, reminding her that when they formed their all-female team, they agreed to only accept female members. The other teammates playfully tease, suggesting she's only interested because he's handsome, though they admit they wouldn't be opposed to him joining. The teasing leaves flustered. Ignoring the commotion, proceeds to the wilderness entry gate. He scans his adventurer card, and a notification confirms his identity and grants him permission to enter. He steps through the massive gate and into the vast expanse of the Yuan wilderness area, a dense, untamed forest. Shortly after entering, he pauses as the distant, powerful roar of a beast echoes through the trees. He recognizes the sound as a territorial declaration from powerful beasts, likely at least tier 4. However, he remains calm, noting to himself that these creatures are not his targets for the day. He begins to plan his hunt, recalling that the Yuan wilderness is divided into a ruined city and a mountain forest. He decides the beasts in the city are generally weaker, making them the perfect starting point to harvest the ability points he needs. He pulls up a holographic map on his smartwatch and identifies a nearby location called Ping'an County. The data indicates the area is mostly inhabited by Tier 2 beasts, with very few Tier 1 and no higher-tiered creatures. With its large area and an estimated 500 to 600 beasts, he concludes it is the ideal hunting ground. With a determined cry, declares his arrival in N County and breaks into a full sprint, his body covered in a faint blue aura as he moves with incredible speed through the forest. He soon enters the desolate, ruined streets of the county, where his presence immediately attracts a ferocious wolf-like beast that lunges at him from the shadows. Calmly identifies his attacker as a Tier 2 shadow cat, seeing it as a timely delivery of ability points. However, as he prepares to fight, he suddenly clutches his chest in pain. He feels the violent negative emotions from the thunder blood stirring within him, filling him with an overwhelming urge to kill. He realizes the more he tries to suppress this impulse, the stronger it becomes. A savage, manic grin spreads across his face as he decides he has had enough of holding back. Unleashing a torrent of purple lightning, he embraces the bloodlust. His sudden transformation and terrifying aura leaving the shadow cat frozen in fear. The scene then shifts to 1 month later. A team of 4 adventurers patrols the empty streets of the same county. One of them asks their bald, red-bearded captain why the area is so deserted, complaining they have been searching for a full day without finding a single beast. The captain angrily retorts that he has no idea, finding the situation deeply unsettling. He reasons there should be hundreds of beasts in a city of this size, and even a mass migration wouldn't leave the area so completely barren. Just then their luck seems to change as a large tiger-like arm-blade tiger appears before them, startling the group. Relieved to have finally found a target, the captain rallies his men, declaring they should kill it together. However, before they can move, a massive spear of pure purple lightning descends from the sky. The energy spear slams directly into the beast, instantly obliterating it in a massive explosion of purple energy and debris. The adventurers are left stunned by the sudden, overwhelming attack. One of them nervously wonders if they just saw a new type of laser weapon. The more experienced captain dismisses the idea, explaining a laser would be much faster. He correctly deduces that the devastating attack was an incredibly powerful lightning element combat technique. The captain of the adventure team quickly understands the situation. He concludes that the devastating attack was a clear warning, and that a powerful individual has claimed the entire county as their territory. He urges his team to leave immediately. His men scramble to follow, with one commenting on how terrifying the lightning spear was, while another finally understands why they couldn't find any beasts. They had all been wiped out by this powerful lightning user. The captain yells at them to hurry, fearing the consequences if they linger and anger the mysterious powerhouse. The scene shifts to reveal the powerhouse perched calmly on a high-rise structure. A system notification pops up confirming his kill of a Tier 2 arm-blade tiger and awarding him 19 ability points. He reflects on his progress, pleased that after reaching a high level of proficiency, his thunder spear technique now has a range of over 1,000 meters. He then pulls up his status panel to review his accomplishments over the past month. By accumulating over 8,000 ability points, he has advanced from a high-level first tier to a high-level second tier user, and his thunder indestructible body has broken through to the third level. He also proudly notes that he has managed to raise several of his A-rank combat techniques to the intermediate level, a feat he believes no one else could achieve in such a short time. Having cleared out the entire county, Su decides it is time to pack up. He plans to return to the supply base for the night before venturing deeper into the wilderness the next day. Back at the Yuan supply base, a group of adventurers watch in disbelief as Su returns, weighed down by an impossibly large and overflowing backpack. They joke about the situation, wondering if his bag has grown legs, and speculating that he must have foolishly hauled back the entire carcass of a beast. Unseen by them, Su thinks to himself that it was a good thing he bought the reinforced version of the backpack. Otherwise, it never would have held the more than 400 kilograms of beast materials he had collected. He proceeds to the adventurer's hall and approaches the receptionist's counter to sell his haul. The woman politely asks what materials he wishes to sell and directs him to a large scale. Opens his massive pack, revealing a mountain of valuable high-quality beast parts. He informs the stunned receptionist that he has over 400 kilograms of Tier II beast materials, and asks her to see how much they are worth. Still in awe, the receptionist examines the parts, noting they are all the most valuable and pristine components, such as tiger tendons, claws, and rhino horns. Completely overwhelmed, she apologetically asks to wait, explaining the quantity of materials is too large for her to handle alone, and that she needs to call for help. Shortly after, a well-dressed man with two female attendants in red dresses approaches. He introduces himself as Yi, the manager in charge of acquisitions. After Su introduces himself, Manager Yi shakes his hand, expressing his admiration that someone so young could hunt so many beasts. He offers to have his staff take care of the inventory and invites Su to sit with him while they wait. While sits with Manager Yi, the adventurer's hall staff, aided by floating scanner drones, meticulously appraise the massive pile of beast materials. The manager is clearly impressed by his young client's skill and decides to foster a good relationship. He presents Su with a platinum membership card for the supply base, which grants a discount on all purchases, and asks him to accept the small token. Su politely accepts, thanking the manager. Soon after, a female employee delivers the final inventory report. She states they have counted a total of 89 high-tier, 107 mid-tier, and 221 low-tier Tier 2 beast materials. The staggering numbers leave the manager inwardly stunned, wondering if Su had single-handedly wiped out an entire beast lair. Turning back to his client, the manager presents the final valuation, totaling just over $24.76 million. He offers to round the payment up to $25 million, an offer Su graciously accepts. A moment later, Su receives a notification on his phone confirming the deposit, bringing his new bank balance to over $29 million. He smiles, realizing he has become incredibly rich overnight. As he prepares to leave, manager gives him his business card, inviting him for tea sometime. Su politely agrees and leaves. The manager watches him go, thinking the young man has a future with limitless potential. Just as Su departs, the manager's phone begins to ring. He answers, and the caller is revealed to be from a hospital bed, heavily bandaged and in a wheelchair. The enraged merchant yells into the phone that he saw the person who attacked him return to the base and furiously demands that the manager help him get revenge. The manager, now revealed to Beast's powerful contact, calmly asks if he is referring to the high-level first-tier user and inquires how he wants to proceed. Furiously demands that he dispatch the Tiger Shark squad to make life a living hell. The manager agrees to lend him the elite squad but makes one condition clear. After this, their association is over, accepts the terms, vowing to leave the city as soon as his revenge is complete. After ending the call, Manager Yi feels a sudden sense of unease. He tries to dismiss it as paranoia, reassuring himself that the Tiger Shark squad is an elite team of Tier 2 users and should have no trouble dealing with a single first-tier opponent. Meanwhile, as Su walks through the streets of the supply base, he suddenly lets out a loud sneeze. He rubs his nose, wondering what that was about and if someone was just talking bad about him somewhere. Manager Yi is on the phone with his superior, enthusiastically reporting about a new ability user named, whose haul of beast materials alone was more than a dozen other teams combined. The superior base chief manager hears the name and says he will check the records. As he pulls up Su's file, his eyes widen in surprise. Manager immediately calls back, his tone urgent. He tells Manager Yi that Su is extremely important and to notify him the moment he returns. He agrees, wondering how a young man could cause such a strong reaction from his boss. He concludes Su must have a powerful background and is relieved he treated him with respect. Meanwhile, Manager looks at his profile. He recognizes him as another disciple of the famed Yang and notes his talent seems to surpass even Ming, another of the dean's students. He concludes is a prodigy who must not be offended. Elsewhere, Su walks through the commercial streets of the supply base. He sees a shop selling spatial storage rings and is dismayed that even basic models, no larger than a suitcase, cost over $10 million. Despite the high price, he finds the convenience of a space ring appealing, and wonders how much a larger one for his spear would cost. His thoughts are interrupted by his phone ringing. He answers and hears the cheerful voice of his roommate, who asks when he'll return to the university. Su says he will be back in about half a month and asks if something is wrong. He doesn't know he is being watched. From a hidden alley, a vengeful sits in a wheelchair. Surrounded by mercenaries, the Tiger Shark Squad, the squad leader, a man with a buzz cut and an arm and a sling, points out their target. He orders them to break Su's hands and feet, then bring him to. A female squad member coolly acknowledges the command. As Su continues his phone call, starts telling him about an arrogant new freshman at the university. Suddenly pauses, sensing hostile gazes, asks what's wrong, but aware of the ambush, looks over his shoulder and calmly tells his roommate it's nothing, and to continue. As Su walks into the deserted alley, the Tiger Shark Squad is waiting. The squad leader signals that the target is in position and orders a member named He to analyze his strength. Another member remarks their captain is being too cautious about a single upper first-rank user. As uses her psychic ability to scan their target, her expression turns to shock, and she exclaims that what she is seeing can't be possible. The captain asks what is wrong, sensing something is amiss. Shares her psychic perception with the team, letting them see what she sees. Their view of the alley shows their auras as small flickers of energy, but is a colossal vortex of immense purple power that dwarfs them. The team is horrified, realizing his power is far stronger than an upper second-rank user, and he could easily destroy them. The leader's face twists in fury as he realizes their intelligence was wrong and sent them on a suicide mission. He immediately aborts the operation, ordering a retreat and vowing to settle the score. From the alley, Su watches the squad members suddenly leap away and vanish, leaving him confused by their sudden withdrawal. He quickly deduces the only person in the base with a grudge against him is, and assumes this was a failed revenge attempt. He dismisses it, thinking people like that never change, and he will teach him a lesson next time. The enraged Tiger Shark Squad returns too. The squad leader storms up to the merchant and slaps him powerfully across the face. The force sends flying from his wheelchair. Stunned and in pain, he demands to know why he was attacked. The leader looks down with contempt, yelling that intel was a death trap. He reveals the shocking truth. Their target wasn't an upper first-rank user but a powerful upper second rank. The news leaves speechless, unable to understand how Su grew so powerful in just over a month. The squad leader, his face cold with disgust, declares he doesn't care. He terminates their mission, leaving Broken on the ground as his team departs. The Tiger Shark Squad leader reports back to Manager Yi, who is surprised to see them return so soon. The squad leader confirms the mission was terminated. He explains that was wrong. The target was an upper second-rank user. He corrects himself, saying it's worse. Their scanner showed his combat strength is at least third rank, which is why they retreated. Manager is enraged, wondering how could make such a huge mistake. A sense of dread dawns on him and he asks for the target's name. The leader says only gave a description. A muscular man about 1.9 meters tall who carries a long spear. The description clicks, and Manager Yi's face turns pale with horror as he realizes who the target was. The scene cuts to Manager's office, who slams his hands on his desk, sending books flying. He yells demanding to know who gave him the audacity to ambush Su. A terrified Yi nervously points out he's just an upper second-rank kid and questions if such a strong reaction is needed. Manager calls him a fool and has a drone project records. As he reads, the horrifying reality hits him. The file confirms is an 18-year-old upper second-rank user, the top scholar of province and a freshman at Superpower University. The most damning detail is his mentor, the legendary Yang. Manager grimly asks if he now understands, explaining a master like Yang could level the base and the state would do nothing. Overcome with fear spikes erupting from his back, Manager, he bows and promises to handle the situation. On Manager's orders, 2 guards drag in the batter. The terrified merchant is thrown to the floor where he begs for his life. Manager Yi, his face cold, declares a simple beating isn't enough. The ringleader must be executed. He tells he has only himself to blame for picking a fight with someone he couldn't afford to offend. Without another word, he snaps the merchant's neck, executing him on the spot. In Manager's office, Manager Yi looks on nervously after executing the merchant. However, the base chief manager is not satisfied. He coldly asks if he believes that is enough to appease someone like Su. With a menacing look, he tells you that while he has overlooked his shady dealings over the years, this mistake is too great. He declares everyone involved, including the Tiger Shark Squad, must be severely punished to ensure no rumors spread. A horrified you can only watch. The scene shifts to the Adventurer's Hall entrance, where the base's top management has gathered in a formal line. A crowd, including and her team, observes the gathering. They recognize manager at the front and note all department heads are present. They guess such an impressive lineup must be for someone very important. Just then, his teammate spots a familiar face, pointing out the young man from Superpower University. Sue, returning from his errands, looks on, confused why the entire management team is at the entrance. The man at the front steps forward. He warmly welcomes student Sue and introduces himself as the base chief manager. Seeing the base's highest authority personally greeting him leaves, and her friends shocked as they realize there is much more to this young man's identity. Manager offers a formal apology. He informs Sue that for the offense has been punished. Furthermore, all accomplices have been rounded up and will spend their lives in prison. To make amends, the manager explains the base has prepared reparations. Sue is impressed, thinking that a chief manager certainly handles matters cleanly and decisively. A female attendant brings forward a box presenting Sue with the base's highest level black gold membership card. Manager explains this card grants him free lodging and a minimum 20% discount on all purchases. Another attendant then presents a second gift, a small box containing a 1 cubic meter space ring. The incredible value of this gift leaves completely stunned as he realizes what he is being offered. Holding the space ring, Sue notes its incredible value, saying it would cost at least $50 million on the market. He accepts the gift, acknowledging manager's sincerity. Manager praises, commenting that his boldness is what he would expect from a student of Yang. He mentions that senior disciple Ming also trained at the base before leaves. Manager assures him that if he runs into trouble in the city, he should contact him, as his influence is significant. Sue understands this special treatment is entirely due to his master's powerful backing. Later, in the luxurious room from his new black gold membership, finally relaxes. After a month of hard training, he is grateful for the rest. He decides to bind the space ring to himself, a process that requires leaving a spiritual imprint on it. With his strong spiritual power far surpassing an average user of his level, he completes the task easily, testing the ring. He finds he can retrieve items with a simple thought and store them with a touch. Although it can't hold living things, he finds it very convenient. His rest is interrupted by a call from his master, Yang. Sue informs him he just returned from the wilderness and has something important to report. Upon learning someone sent mercenaries to attack his disciple, Yang becomes enraged. He shouts over the phone that a space ring is too light a compensation for an assassination attempt and threatens to destroy the base if anything had happened to him. Once calmer, he asks why the elite squad retreated. Speculates they realized his strength was much greater than they expected, seeing him as an upper-tier second-rank user, forcing them to fall back. The news leaves Yang speechless. He shouts into the phone in disbelief that Sue has already reached that level in just 1 month. His master's shock quickly turns into a proud laugh. He praises, stating his cultivation speed is even faster than his was, and eagerly asks when he plans to return so they can celebrate. Sue tells him he will be back just before the semester begins, as he plans to use the remaining time to explore more dangerous areas. His master warns him to be careful, and Sue assures him he will. After the call, Yang is still beaming with joy. His butler uncle remarks it has been a long time since he's seen him so happy. The dean can't contain his admiration for his astonishing speed of improvement. He reflects that life and death crises, which are catalysts for others, seem to work like a powerful cheat device for his talented disciple, speeding up his growth at an incredible rate. Following his plan, ventures into the forest mountain range, a more advanced part of the wilderness. As he walks, the air is filled with the roars of fierce beasts. He notes this area seems much richer in resources than the ruined city he had cleared. His keen senses pick up on an attack just as his boot snaps a twig, alerting his foe to his position. Suddenly, invisible energy slashes tear through the air aimed at him. Reacting with incredible speed, dodges the assault. The blasts narrowly missing him and slicing through the trees. The attacker reveals itself, a large, ferocious gale. Sue calmly analyzes it, guessing that most third-rank beasts have special abilities. He identifies the wolf as a wind element creature, likely at a mid-tier third-rank level, and wonders how many ability points its defeat will give him. As prepares to fight the beast, he senses another group approaching. It is the popular streamer with her bodyguards and a cameraman. One of her men points out the gale, suggesting it would be perfect for Miss to defeat on camera. The team leader orders his subordinate to block the wolf's escape, intending to claim the beast for themselves. Observes this, thinking they are trying to steal his kill, which is against the wilderness rule, where the first person to find a resource has claim to it. However, expresses her disapproval. She states that she dislikes taking another's prey just for filming content. The leader tries to frame it as a heroic rescue for their stream. Is not convinced, saying she doesn't need fake praise and pointing out that Sue appears calm and capable, not needing help. Following her wishes, the team leader complains quietly but agrees to find another beast. He orders his team to leave. Watches them go, thinking's character is surprisingly decent for a famous online personality. However, he also notes the team leaders seem to have little authority. He dismisses the thought and refocuses on his hunt. The Gale-dread wolf, annoyed that stood his ground, lunges in a furious attack. Unfazed, easily evades the beast's charge. The attack throws slightly off balance, enraged that its prey is not taking it seriously. However, quickly recovers and retaliates. Channeling his lightning power, he brings his spear down with immense force, plunging the electrified tip into the beast's skull. The beast collapses. A system notification confirms the kill, awarding him 34 ability points. Su reflects on the reward, noting with satisfaction that getting over 30 points from a single third-ranked beast is quite good. With a smirk, he looks forward to the last 10 days of his expedition, eager to hunt as many beasts as possible. 7 days later, hunt continues. He finds a troop of large, ape-like beasts who are startled by a brilliant flash of light from above. He unleashes a powerful range technique, a massive spear of pure energy which descends from the sky, and slams into the ground, creating a powerful explosion. The blast leaves a crater with one ape-like creature lying heavily wounded within it. Is surprised his thunder spear attack didn't instantly kill the leader. He acknowledges that, as expected of a third-ranked beast leader, it is durable. With a menacing look, purple lightning crackling around him, he decides not to waste time on the lesser beasts. He resolves to finish them all off quickly. He charges into the remaining group, his body covered in lightning. He moves like a blur, weaving through their attacks and striking them down with his spear. Standing over the defeated ape-like beasts, hunt in this area is a success. He checks his system panel, a satisfied smile on his face. As he sees he has over 3,000 ability points, he thinks this amount should be enough to finally learn the powerful S-rank combat techniques he has been eagerly anticipating. Just as he is about to move on, his smartwatch beeps, projecting a holographic distress signal. Elsewhere is desperately fleeing for her life, leaping through the trees at incredible speed. She's being pursued by a massive, armored, dragon-like creature. Through her panicked thoughts, she reveals her team was scattered by a powerful fourth-rank beast, and in the chaos she ran into another foe, a low-tier, third-ranked ground-digging dragon. She knows any beast associated with dragons is very fierce. As a mid-tier second-rank user, she understands she has no chance of winning, even with a power-boosting pill. Her only hope is that another superpowered person will see her distress signal and come to her aid. Her situation becomes worse when she breaks out of the dense forest into an open clearing. She realizes with a sense of doom that without cover, the beast will surely catch her. As she feared, the creature closes in, cornering her completely. Just as the beast is about to strike, a massive spear of pure purple lightning descends from the sky, slamming in front of the creature and stopping its attack. Appears in a flash of lightning, standing protectively between her and the stunned beast, looks on in utter shock, immediately recognizing her savior. Seeing him stand his ground, frantically tells him to run, explaining that the creature is a low-tier, third-rank, ground-digging dragon he can't defeat. However, ignores her warning, planting his spear in the ground as he calmly faces the beast, leaving her stunned. Frustrated that he won't listen, she feels responsible. She thinks it would be one thing if she died alone, but she can't bear the thought of getting an innocent person killed. Making a selfless choice, she sprints past him, shouting for him to escape while she tries to hold off the creature. The ground-digging dragon roars and charges at them both. Prepares to fight. Before she can act, unleashes his power behind her. He summons a massive spear of crackling lightning and hurls it over her head at the charging beast, leaving her to watch in stunned silence. The energy spear descends at incredible speed, piercing directly through the beast's armored head in a massive explosion of purple lightning and gore. The creature collapses, its head completely destroyed, falls to her knees in complete disbelief, stammering about how the fearsome beast was killed in a single instant attack. She looks up thinking about his terrifying power. She realizes the sonic boom she heard earlier was from him, and wonders how he could be so strong when he's supposed to be only an upper-tier second-rank user. A notification appears for her, confirming the kill and awarding him 36 ability points. He smirks, thinking that, as expected of a beast with dragon in its name, it provides more points than a normal beast of the same rank. After the battle, Su approaches, who is still on the ground, and asks if she is all right. She says she is fine, just weak in the knees, and thanks him for saving her. He modestly replies that anyone would have done the same and helps her up. Standing says she owes him a great debt for saving her life, and he can ask for anything in the future. Politely declines, but says an autographed photo for his roommate would be the best reward. The request surprises her, but she agrees, saying she doesn't have one with her but can give it to him at the supply base. Her attention is then drawn to his weapon. She recognizes it as the famous Dark Cloud Gale spear and asks if he's a student at university. He confirms it was a gift from his master. Explains the weapon is famous because it's so heavy only powerful users can wield it. She introduces herself as a second-year student from the Elemental Academy. Hearing this, Su greets her as a senior. She internally notes she's never heard his name at school and concludes he must be a very low-key upperclassman. He realizes she thinks he is a senior because most students don't reach his power level until their third year, and he decides not to correct her. Still in awe, marvels that he could instantly kill a strong, upper-tier, third-ranked creature. As he prepares to leave, she stops him. With a blush, she shyly asks if she can travel with him for a while, explaining she was separated from her bodyguards and can't survive alone in the wilderness. Su agrees to escort her to the ruined city from where she can get back safely. She happily thanks him. As they walk, she suggests they check the beast's cave for valuable items, which is why it attacked her, agrees it's worth a look. On the way, she asks which academy he belongs to. When he says he is from the Weaponry Academy, she comments that she knows their dean, Yang, has a very fierce nickname. Su calmly informs her the dean is his master. The revelation leaves flustered and embarrassed, and she apologizes profusely for speaking badly of his teacher. Su is taken aback, thinking that for a cold online ice goddess, she is quite a chatterbox in person. Leads him to a dark, rocky cave, the ground-digging dragon's lair. Inside, he cautiously tells her to stay behind him as he is unsure of what dangers lie ahead. She agrees, following closely as he leads with his spear, crackling with protective lightning. Their caution soon turns to amazement. Deeper inside, they discover a hidden oasis. A small spring of clear turquoise water is surrounded by a garden of rare and fragrant flowers. He's stunned, identifying several high-grade medicinal herbs. His shock grows as he realizes the spring is an S-grade Earth Spirit Spring, a legendary healing treasure. He turns to in disbelief, asking if she is certain. She confirms it, explaining the spring nourishes the surrounding plants, turning them into rare and powerful herbs. Su is impressed by her deep knowledge. She proudly reveals she is a certified second-grade pharmacist, a qualification he knows is very difficult to achieve. After assessing their find, estimates there is enough spring water for at least 5 portions of S-grade healing liquid. As thanks for saving her life, she selflessly offers the entire treasure to him. However, Su proposes a fairer deal. He suggests they split the spring water, with him taking 4 parts to her 1, and divide the herbs equally. Delighted by his generous offer, she happily accepts, as and Jing are dividing their findings. Her team of bodyguards arrives at the cave entrance. One man is skeptical, questioning what could be valuable in an unguarded cave. The team leader corrects him, pointing out traces show it's the lair of a third-ranked ground-digging dragon, and dragon nests often contain rare treasures. As they enter, they are surprised to find Su inside. She's startled by their sudden appearance, internally worrying that if this elite team of third-rank users discovers the S-grade spring, there will be trouble. The leader greets her, saying they've been searching for her. He then curiously notes Su's presence. Thinking quickly, explains Su is a senior from her school she just met. She gestures to the treasure, suggesting that since the herbs are high quality, they should all share. The leader grinned and agreed, but one of his guys pulled him aside and said the spring might actually be the legendary S-grade Earth Spirit Spring, basically a treasure worth a fortune. As soon as that dropped, the whole vibe shifted in the room. The bodyguard's eyes lit up, locked in on the huge opportunity in front of him. Su-en could tell right away that something about them changed. The leader's smile fades, and suddenly he's got this cold, intimidating look. It's clear he's not buying her act, and he just stares her down like he knows she's hiding something. Clocks how risky things are getting, so she gives up on keeping the treasure. She tells the team they can take it all, then tries to drag with her, but he just stands there not budging. She quickly points out that the bodyguards are top-tier third-rank users and there's no way they can take them. But Su just stays calm, looking like he's got full confidence, not seeing himself as any weaker than those guys. He points out that handing over the treasure wouldn't save them. The squad would still take them out, and she knows deep down he's right. The thought hits her hard. The team leader just laughs, basically letting everyone know Su nailed it. He points out that, yeah, the kid sounds cocky, but he's not wrong. Then he breaks down their cold way of thinking, showing how they really operate. Has a big following. If they let her walk, she could easily blow everything up online and wreck their lives. So he decides the safest play is to take them both out and make sure nobody ever finds out what happened in that cave. Didn't want to slow anyone down, so he made a tough call for himself. She takes it out and she downs a red pill, ready to jump in and back up the person who just saved her. The pill kicks in right away, and her rank ice powers just go wild. She let her power loose, ice spreading fast across the floor and locking the bodyguard's feet in place. The team leader doesn't even flinch. He starts handing out orders like it's just another day. He tells Joe to handle Su first, throwing some shade by calling him boyfriend. Meanwhile, everyone else gets told to lock down the cave entrance. The plan's ready, so the leader locks eyes on. Out of nowhere, his whole body starts to change. His C-rank power kicked in, and suddenly he was this huge, wild, saber-toothed tiger, looking like he was ready to tear things up. He gave her a cold look, making it clear he was about to end her right there. His guys start saying messed up stuff, talking about filming everything before taking her out, showing just how twisted they really are. Stomach dropped when she realized she was surrounded by people worse than monsters. The thought of dying here messed her up, but what really got to her was knowing she pulled into this mess too. She spins around to give him a heads up, but what she spots leaves her stunned. Out of nowhere, the whole fight flips. Leader watched as the tiger started to change. His eyes got big when he noticed something moving. Nobody even gets a chance to move before, just suddenly they're behind Joe, his spear already straight through the guy's chest. Joe's bodyguard drops right away, dude, out before anyone even knows what happened. Stands over his opponent, barely fazed. He's got that look that says this guy wasn't even a challenge, third-tier fighters just don't cut it for him. The leader just freezes up when he sees how fast Su moves. He just couldn't figure out how his third best guy got dropped so fast. His face turned serious as it hit him. He'd totally read things wrong. Su was actually the one he needed to watch out for. He's fired up and goes all in, launching his own move. He swings that huge axe with everything he's got, and the attack comes out strong like a tiger's roar. Su just sidesteps the heavy hit like it's nothing, his whole body moving so fast it's like he's got purple lightning running through him. He ducks out of the way, sizing up how strong the guy in front of him really is. It's pretty clear this top captain is on another level, way stronger than he is. He knows right then he can't play it safe anymore. The tiger boss and his crew just stood there, totally thrown off by how strong Su was. They weren't ready for what he just pulled, and now they're all trying to figure out what just happened. Clock's pretty quick that this guy's way tougher than he expected. He knows playing it safe isn't gonna cut it anymore, so he just goes all in and unlocks this Thunder Extreme mode he's been holding back. Out of nowhere, wild purple lightning bursts out of him, straight up shredding his shirt and showing off a way more jacked build than before. Just stands there totally frozen, her face showing she's impressed but also kind of worried. The tiger leader just freezes up, eyes glued to the wild, swirling darkness around. He can't help but wonder what kind of beast he's dealing with right now. Su's whole look just shifts hard. His eyes turn this intense blue, almost glowing, and his pupils go all sharp and narrow. Suddenly, two huge demon horns pop out of his head, finishing off his new, straight-up scary look. He soaks up the insane rush, loving every second of how strong he feels. The leader freezes for a second, but then just shrugs it off. He figures it's probably some kind of special mode meant to look tough, so he doesn't bother worrying about it. He shakes off the nerves and gets ready to go at it again, feeling locked in and ready to make his next move. Flashes a wild grin and charges straight ahead. The two fighters go head to head. The leader's confident, pulling out his lying move because he trusts his armor to handle anything someone ranked lower throws at him. But he doesn't see what's coming. Su's lightning gale slash comes in fast and lands right on his weapon, and just like that the leader finds out he was way too sure of himself. Su's hit packs so much power that the leader's tough armor just cracks open. Tiger Man gets launched backward from the hit, totally wiped out. Stands there totally locked in, showing off his new form. He knows his body just got way stronger, like 3 or 4 times his old strength. At this point, even the leader's crazy tough skin wouldn't stand a chance against him. The fight's still on. Even though their boss just got dropped, one of the bodyguards charges at and goes off with this heavy B-rank move called Flame Claw. Even after transforming, still had everything under control. The fire attack came at him, but he just shut it down with his lightning like it was nothing. The bodyguard just stood there, totally stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around how someone ranked lower had shut down his move like it was nothing. Su stands over the bodyguard, who's already down for the count. He knows the guy put up a solid fight, no surprise since he's a top-level fighter. But Su's got it locked in now and is ready to finish things off with one last move. The guy totally panics, trying to save himself by throwing out the Earth Spirit Spring and everything he owns, hoping Su will let him go. But Su isn't having it. He's ice cold and just shuts him down, making it clear there's no chance to back out now. Just stood there not really able to process what she was seeing. She dropped serious cash on this team and everyone said their captain was unbeatable, but now they'd just gotten wiped out. She can't remember anyone at her school ever having skills like his, so she starts thinking maybe he's actually S-rank. After dropping the rest, locks onto the last bodyguards. That thunder blood in him starts going wild again, pushing him to get even more aggressive. The way he moves just screams danger and the two guys left are straight up paralyzed. They see him as a total monster. Su just laughs it off, thinking these guys are way worse than him. At least he still feels like a real person compared to them. The last guys left could tell they were way out of their league. With nowhere to run, their boss gave the signal and every one of them popped a pill. They got ready to go all out, even if it meant not making it out. The fight doesn't last long, it's intense and over quick. Right after, everything jumps straight to what's left behind. Su, back to his usual self and rocking no shirt, stood there owning the moment. All around him, the whole squad was laid out, totally wiped. He was the last one standing, like he just finished a boss fight and won. His Thunder Extreme mode left him totally drained. He slumped against a rock wall, trying to catch his breath, running on empty. He knew this form was crazy strong, but it burned through his energy way too fast. After just 10 minutes, he was way more wiped out than after battling for hours. Once the fight ended, didn't waste a second, he hurried over to check on, making sure he was okay. Was clearly wiped out, but he still let her know he was good. Instead of crashing right there, he told her they should scoop up the spring water and herbs while they had the chance, then rest up after. Stood by the clear spring, glad the fight hadn't messed up the water. She could finally relax, knowing the spring was still clean. They start grabbing a bunch of glass bottles and slowly fill them up with the powerful water from the Earth Spirit Spring, making sure not to waste a single drop. When they wrapped up, Sue realized they'd actually grabbed way more than they thought. He gave a full bottle and then half of another, making sure she got her cut since she really put in work too. She's pumped by how generous he is, and she shows it, all smiles and energy. Just as things start to chill out, everything flips. Out of nowhere, trips up and lets out a yell, clearly hurting. She stumbles and falls right into Sue, and that's when it hits her. Those brutal side effects from the blood burst pill she took earlier are finally catching up. The blood burst pill finally caught up too, and the side effects hit her hard. She couldn't hold it together, pain took over, and she dropped forward right into. He wasn't expecting it at all, but he managed to catch her before she fell. She's down on the ground, just staring up, realizing she can't do anything right now. All her energy is gone, and she's so wiped out she can't even grab clothes from her space ring. She starts shaking and her face goes red, totally embarrassed and hoping she's not messing things up in front of everyone. Sue notices how rough she looks after taking the pill and points out that the side effects are hitting hard. He decides she needs a break, and without giving her time to react, just picks her up. She definitely wasn't ready for that, and it throws her off big time. He picks her up and her heart starts racing. She can't help but think it might be because she's never been this close to a guy before. Sue picks her up and heads over to a quiet patch of grass, setting her down carefully. He lets her chill there for a bit while he heads out to grab the rest of the herbs. Right before he heads out, he pulls off his black shirt and hands it to her, just so she's got something to throw on. Takes it, thinking about how this guy is actually super thoughtful. As she takes a breather, focuses on the bodyguards laid out on the floor. He grabs a space ring off one of them, not wasting any time. He checks out what's inside, and honestly, he's let down. All he sees is some cash, random beast parts, a few herbs, and just a C-grade combat technique, nothing special for an elite squad. He's got 2 rings in his hands, hoping he can swap them for just one bigger ring. Carrying around that long spear all the time is seriously annoying. Still on the ground, gets his attention. She lets him know the Earth Spirit Spring could actually help with how weak she's been feeling, and she quietly asks if he could let her have a little to drink. Hands her a small vial filled with spring water, and she downs it quick, not wasting a drop. Right away, she lets out a breath, finally starting to feel her energy coming back. Let's know she's already feeling way better, but she figures she'll need a few more hours to bounce back all the way. She's honestly kind of surprised the pill's side effects can actually be handled, and she can't get over how wild the S-grade Earth Spirit Spring is. Sue checks how long it'll take for her to recover and notices it's already getting late. To keep things safe, he decides they should just chill in the cave for the night. Couldn't believe he'd be stuck in a pitch-black cave overnight with some random guy. The whole idea had him totally thrown off, and he couldn't help but feel super uneasy about it. Sue looks over, wanting to know what thinks. She's turning red, kind of embarrassed, but nods and goes along with whatever he decides, letting him take charge. The next morning, sunlight slides right through the trees in the forest. Was back to full strength and stretched out, feeling way better. The fresh air in the woods just hit different, and honestly she thought she could chill there for a whole month if those wild beasts weren't around. She looks over at Sue, thinking back to all the stuff she stressed about last night. Turns out she was just overthinking it and kind of laughs at herself for letting her mind run wild. Now she realizes he's nothing like what she was worried about, but there's still this tiny bit of letdown she can't shake. She snaps out of her thoughts when Sue lets her know it's time to head out and offers to walk her to the edge of the forest. Not expecting that, she nods pretty quick, ready to go. They started sprinting through the woods, taking the front and setting the pace. Out of nowhere, he just stops and throws his arm out in front of her, making sure she can't take another step. Suddenly, this huge, fire-covered beast jumps right over their heads, glances up frozen, and realizes it's a 5th-tier blazing tiger, seriously strong and way out of his league. The giant beast crashes down way up ahead and just keeps running, hid behind a tree watching the tiger and hoping it hadn't seen them. Meanwhile, notice the tiger wasn't just running around, it looked totally freaked out, like something way bigger was chasing it. Her eyes go wide when she figures out what has to be coming after it. A huge pack of gray, wolf-looking creatures with glowing red eyes charges by, moving fast. Keeps her voice down as she points out that these are iron-toothed rats. Even though they're just first-tier beasts, she knows that when they roll up in a huge group like this, they're actually a big problem. Even someone super strong would get swarmed. Suddenly, it clicks for her why the blazing tiger belaid so fast. Seeing the rats crowding in, starts to freak out and tells Sue they need to get out of there fast. Doesn't even think, he just grabs her hand and they both take off, booking it away from whatever's coming. The rats were right behind him, closing in fast. While they're running, Sue gets it. The rats just don't get tired, so ditching them by just running isn't going to work. The supply base is still 90 kilometers out, so he knows they have to pick up the pace if they want any shot at getting away. His spear made it tough for him to move fast, so he knew he had to ditch it, but then stepped up and said her space ring was big enough to stash it, saving him the hassle. She grabs the heavy spear and puts it away like it's nothing, letting him go. Now that he's way lighter, Sue realizes just holding hands isn't getting them anywhere fast. He thinks it'd just be easier if he carried her on his back, freezes. She honestly has no clue how to react to that. He doesn't wait for her to say anything, just scoops her up onto his back and takes off, moving even faster than before. He finally makes it out of the woods and finds himself standing in what used to be a city, now totally wrecked. Their nerves barely have a second to chill before everything goes sideways again. They spot the swarm tearing into another beast's body, and just like that, gets it, what they were worried about is actually happening. The rat tide has taken over the whole place. With nowhere left to run, he decides it's time to throw down. He flips the switch to Thunder Extreme mode, purple lightning starts crackling all over him, and out of nowhere these wild demon horns pop up on his head. He looks over at who's clearly freaking out and signals him to grab on tight. Without wasting a second, he dives straight into the swarm, ready to take them all head on. He goes all out, tearing through the rats so fast he's basically a blur. Every time he takes one down, he racks up more ability points, and he's not slowing down anytime soon. Over at a military base, Manager and his crew are locked in, keeping an eye on everything going down. Over 300,000 rats were out there, according to one of the officials. Just stood there looking serious, knowing this was about to wreck the whole ecosystem. One of the guys pulls up a map showing where all the ability users got stuck, kinda bummed out because, honestly, most of them probably won't make it out. Can't stop thinking about Sue. He knows that if Sue gets caught, he's pretty much done for unless Master Yang steps in. Without his master, there's really no one else who could bail him out. Out of nowhere, a soldier catches this huge ball of purple lightning popping up on the screens. Doesn't waste time, he tells everyone to get ready for action. Then someone drops the info that whatever that thing is, it's moving crazy fast, like 80 meters per second. The soldiers unload their guns, but the bullets just bounce right off the energy shield like it's nothing. Still looking like a total demon, goes all out and jumps way up into the sky with. He flew right over the military blockade, not even slowing down. He drops down smooth right in the middle of the soldiers, who all freeze up, trying to process what just happened as his powers chill out. The soldiers just stand there totally frozen. One guy honestly thought that wild energy was some kind of monster, not a human. Another dude can't get over how intense the man's vibe is, like it's actually scary. Meanwhile, someone else keeps staring at the girl, thinking she looks way too familiar for comfort. Sue switched back to his regular self, shirtless and looking wiped out. He let know they'd finally made it to the supply base, so they were good now. Grabbed his arm, clearly relieved, and showed his thanks. Right then, Manager spots Sue and heads over fast. He knows who Sue is right away and checks if he needs anything after getting away. Sue, still catching his breath, tells him he just sprinted for like 40 minutes from the mountains and really just needs a place to crash for a bit. Can't believe what he's seeing. He knows those mountains are more than 90 kilometers out, and honestly, even someone with next-level powers would have a hard time breaking through that crowd from so far away. Wants to help out and tries to set up a room, but before he can do anything, jumps in and says she's got it covered. She helps, who looks totally wiped out, and some soldiers hanging around start whispering. They spot her right away, everyone knows her as Goddess. The guys can't help but talk about how this dude must be the luckiest guy in the world. A few of them start guessing if there's something going on between the two, and one dude's clearly salty, acting like his crush just got taken right in front of him. After 2 whole days and nights, Sue finally wakes up in a super comfy bed. He wakes up and notices right next to him, smiling like she's been waiting. She lets him know he was out for a while and almost gave him some Earth Spirit Spring to help him bounce back. Woke up realizing he'd been out for way longer than he expected. He wanted to know what was up with the wilderness, but let him know that the rat tide was still going strong, so nobody was allowed out there. She also mentioned that when it's finally over, there probably won't be many beasts left roaming around. Sue figured he had no reason to hang around, especially with the new semester about to kick off, so he made up his mind to head back to campus. When found out, she said she was going back too and suggested they team up for the trip. Sue just nods and goes along with it. While they're figuring things out, suddenly remembers something she said she'd do. She hands him the signed photo he wanted, but Sue isn't ready for what he sees. Instead of a normal pic, it's her in some wild-looking lingerie, posing way more boldly than he ever imagined. Definitely not what he pictured getting.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Web2 Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.